Your locations in the comments, folks, as y'all coming in. Happy Friday morning. Hope everybody's having a great uh, start to the last day of this week, at least the business days of this week. As y'all are coming in, put your locations in the comments and we will get started shortly. Locations in the comments. The topic here today, we're going to talk about, do we have proof of Donald Trump's connection to Epstein, or let's say negative proof of Donald Trump's connection to Epstein, or even a better way of saying it, do we have proof that Donald Trump did something bad with Jeffrey Epstein? We're going to talk about that here today. We got to break it down because what many of you probably have saw or heard on the internet or on the news, depending on where you get your news from, you may have been misled. But I'm going to break it all down. I'm going to make it real clear, and there will be, without a shadow of a doubt, you will understand by the time we get through this here today. So as y'all are coming in, put your locations in the comments. Let me make sure we are active where we need to be active. We are live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. Live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Let's see if we are active on X. Yes, we are live on X. Good morning over there on X. We are live on LinkedIn. Yes, if you are on LinkedIn or X or Rumble on YouTube, my name on each one of those platforms is @DreAllDay. @DreAllDay on Rumble and YouTube and LinkedIn and X. By the way, the replays to all of these live streams are always on my YouTube, always on my Rumble. So if you ever want to see the replay, or I tell you I talked about a topic already, the replay is always on my Rumble channel and always on my YouTube channel. So those both names on either platform is @DreAllDay, or just look my name up, Dre Baldwin. Pretty easy to find. We are live on Facebook, Facebook/Work on Your Game University. If you are a Facebook user, Facebook/Work on Your Game University is where you can get onto my Facebook page, and Instagram @Dre Baldwin, and then TikTok @Work on Your Game. I'm live on all those platforms at the same time right now. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Rumble, YouTube, all right now. So the replays, again, always on YouTube, or if you ever have an issue with any one of those platforms, just check one of the other ones and I'm live on those as well. So give me your locations in the comments, and I'll shout a few people out before we get started. Tell me your locations where y'all are checking in from in the comments, and I'll shout a few out. Linda Gale, 1935 from St. Louis. Happy Friday. Leah, good morning. Happy Friday. 140.6 Walnut Creek, California. Good morning, Leah. Thanks for the hearts early. Nikki from Connecticut. Carolyn Rudder said, yay, Friday. Queen Warrior, thanks for joining. Annie AFF from Kentucky. L. Johnson, Union, New Jersey. Good morning. Carolyn Rudder, Oakwood, Georgia. Billie Jean from Indiana. Good morning. Quail Ridge from Lincoln, California. Irma V, good morning. Leah, thank you for the lightning bolts early. Irma said TGIF. Jake Lancaster checking in from Corn Country. So where is that? Iowa? I don't know where that is. Sweet Tea from South Carolina. Good morning, Irma V. The gifter badge moving up. Congrats. Carla, Indiana. Good morning. Don Johnson, thanks for the repost. Irma, thank you for the TGIF times 101. That's a lot of TGIFs. Andrea Levitt, thank you for the heart. Carla, thank you for the lightning bolt. J. Rocker said, good morning from Delaware. Do I have a different device for each platform? Some devices can do multiple platforms, such as a laptop. So not 7 different devices, but at least 3 usually. Sold by Misty, Charlotte, North Carolina. Cure Fan SC checking in from Connecticut. Daniel Aker from Toledo, Ohio. Annie Omara Pashos. I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but checking in from Tucson, Arizona. Shout out to Tucson. Just me Q45 ROI. Roy, Dallas, Texas. Good morning. Andrea Levitt from Massachusetts. Kristen, Delaware is back. Shout out to Delaware. Where did Delaware go? Went away. Erica B from Baltimore, Maryland. Good morning. Ronaldo checking in from a different planet. Leah from Tifton, Georgia. Sham of two, no, not Sham, stay at home moms. SAHM of two beautiful boys. Jessica from Indiana. Jake Lancaster said corn country is Iowa. Okay, I don't know how I guessed that, but all right. Shout out to corn country. Shout out to Iowa. Shout out to Middle America. Perry U, Nebraska. Good morning. The Addicts Dot from Northeast Ohio. Shout out to Ohio. And shout out to South Florida. Shout out to Philadelphia. My hometown's Philadelphia. My residence is in South Florida. Shout out to South Florida. So the topic here today, did we get proof that Donald Trump is either in the Epstein files, which he may be in the files, but that doesn't prove he actually did anything wrong. But do we have proof that he did something wrong? Maybe, maybe not. Let's break it down. So those of you who have heard anything about this story, almost all of you have, know that there's this boogeyman called the Epstein files. These are all these files that the government allegedly has collected, or maybe we agree they have collected, that have all the information, all the data, and all the names, dates, places, interactions that happened with Mr. Jeff Epstein, who passed away, 5-6 years ago, allegedly taking his own life while he was in MDC Correctional Center in Manhattan, after he had been convicted, or he was either had been convicted or was on his way being convicted for some things that he did with underage girls for many years. There was a whole docu-series on this on Netflix years ago. It's probably still on Netflix to this very day. And ever since, and this happened up to the trial was around 2019. Of course, we had the Biden administration from 2021 through early 2025. And when Donald Trump came back into office, all of a sudden, everybody got a hard on, pardon the pun, for Donald Trump allegedly being in the Epstein files. He's allegedly in the files. Even Elon Musk, when he had a little temper tantrum about Donald Trump, he went on social media and said, well, Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. That's the reason why he's not putting out the files. And everybody's been talking about the Epstein files, especially people who don't like Donald Trump. They want to see Donald Trump brought down. They say, well, he must be in the Epstein files. That's why he's not putting out the files. They need to release the files. Pam Bondi, the current attorney general, was basically the top prosecutor in the country. She announced they were going to release the Epstein files. She called, a bunch of people got called to the White House for other reasons. Then they got handed these files, the alleged Epstein files, but it wasn't really much in there, but a bunch of redacted files. Those who don't know what redacted means, it means it's a file, but it has names, dates, and places blacked out. So you can't really piece together all the information because you don't really know what's being talked about. Even though something is being described, you can't tell who, what, when, or where if the file is completely redacted. So Pam Bondi put those out months ago, and she kind of put her foot in the mouth. Didn't look good doing that. Donald Trump, it looked like he wasn't too happy about that whole process. Then the media kept asking about the Epstein files. At one point, several months ago, Donald Trump basically talked about the Epstein files as if they were a non-story. Why are people still asking about this? It's pretty much over. There's nothing else to see. Nothing to see here about the Epstein files. Stop asking about it. We don't want to talk about it anymore. That was the message Donald Trump gave, not in so many words, but that's pretty much what he said. He doesn't want anybody talking about the Epstein files anymore. Many people use this they pointed to this as evidence, not proof, but evidence that maybe Donald Trump is in the files and he doesn't want the files to come out because he thinks or knows it's going to make him look bad. So he's trying to get the press to stop talking about it, or he doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe he told Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and all his staff, don't talk about the Epstein files anymore. We don't want to bring it up. And it's been pretty quiet for a couple months since that happened when he was talking to the press. What happened yesterday was these files got released. House Democrats, so Democrats in the House of Representatives, that's the part of Congress that you voted for. These are the people who are the legislature who are making the laws or the bills that become laws in our country. They released some emails that how they got access to these emails is a different question. We'll get to that in a moment. They released some emails that were written by Jeff Epstein. And they released these over the course of about 2 days earlier this week. And it set off an online explosion. Now, of course, it set off an explosion because there's a bunch of people in America and the world, for that matter, who really don't like Donald Trump, and anything they can put out there, even if it's based off of a bunch of nothing, that can allegedly make Donald Trump look bad, or they think is going to bring down Donald Trump, they'll use it because it makes them feel good to say, hey, Donald Trump's going to go down because of this, whatever it is they can come up with. They've been trying this for the last 10 years, I think all of you know, and for 10 years, they pretty much failed, and this is just the newest one that they've come up with. So what happened is these emails came out, and the documents themselves, they said, well, first of all, in the emails, all you see the emails, Put yes or no in the comments. Any of you who saw the Epstein emails that came out yesterday when it came to these emails that not Donald Trump, but Epstein wrote, where he was talking about Donald Trump. And let me see if I can pull up a few of them. Did y'all see them? Okay. So a few of these emails came out. So here's one of them. And it doesn't even matter who posted it because everybody's posting it. So allegedly in February 8, 2017, Jeff Epstein wrote this email where he was writing to this guy named Larry Summers. And he said the following: "Recall, I've told you, I met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body. So yes, dangerous." And then Larry wrote back, "He didn't wreck world and avoided scandal. What does Rumeller say re his attitude towards women?" And what did Epstein say? Actually, I don't see Epstein say anything back. No, Epstein wrote back. He wrote back, "Speak today." So Epstein writes in shorthand when it comes to emails, obviously. And some other people have come out saying things, and a bunch of people in Congress are now trying to do a vote. The House of Representatives is doing a vote right now. They're trying to force the Epstein files without the redactions to be released. There are several issues with this happening. For any of you wondering if it's going to happen or how it would happen, several issues. Number one, that the House of Representatives may get enough votes to push it through. And the way Congress works is usually the House of Representatives votes on something first. If they get it approved, they get enough votes to support it, then it goes to the senators. And the representatives is about 450-ish people, 430-ish people. If they can get it approved, then it goes to the Senate. The Senate has the vote on it. And if the Senate approves, there's only 100 senators, 50 from each state. 50 total, 50 total states, 2 from each state. If the Senate approves, then it goes to the president, and the president will have to sign it. Now that I just told you that, you can understand why this is probably not going to happen. Because first of all, the president will have to sign it. The president is probably not going to sign this because it might make him look bad. And he already tried to frame this as a nothing burger. So even if it wouldn't make him look bad, maybe he's not going to sign it simply because he wants to stick to his guns. And also because it may never make it to his desk because the Senate may not approve it, because right now the Senate is majority Republican, 53 voters in the Senate who are Republicans. So how this is ever going to make it to Donald Trump's desk or get to the eyes of the people is probably not going to happen. Now, of course, everybody who doesn't like Donald Trump is going to keep saying it over and over again. And there are plenty of pieces out there, people talking about this. So here's something else. This came from, let me see. Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly sent an email in April of 2011 where she said the following. Actually, Jeff Epstein said something to Ghislaine. He said, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim," we know who the victim is. I'll tell you who that is in a second, "spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." And Ghislaine wrote back, allegedly, "I have been thinking about that." Now, we are pretty sure that these emails are actually real. These are not spam emails or fake emails because these have already been affirmed by the United States government, Department of Justice, that these are actual Jeff Epstein emails. But the problems are several. Here's another email. This is one from Jeff Epstein written August 23rd, 2018. He says the following. He's writing to someone named Kathy Rumeller. He said, "You see, I know how dirty Donald is. My guess is that non-lawyers, New York biz people have no idea what it means to have your fixer flip." I don't know who he's talking about. A name specifically is not mentioned here. We can guess, but names are not mentioned. Kathy wrote before that, so there's a thread of emails. Kathy has said, "It makes no difference whether it was his money. Issue is failure to disclose, plus the fact that he lied his ass off about it makes it clear that he knew it was illegal." Jeff Epstein said, "I think he makes the argument that it was Trump's money, making it not illegal, though he also said he only found out afterwards, ? And the fact, according to the indictment, was billed as services rendered." He's talking about that fraud case that he had in New York last year that finally came up. They were talking about it in 2018. "I'm sure his accountant has flipped anyway. I did talk in detail to Starr yesterday, re-indictments, how Trump can make a deal, special counsel, Clinton's trash can. Yes, Starr gave me more. Yeah." And this is just Jeff Epstein talking. So they're just talking about Donald Trump. There's really nothing in that email. But there's a bunch of these emails that came out. These emails we already knew about. These are not new, by the way. So any of you thought this was new, this is not new. It's not a bombshell because these emails have already been out. And the Department of Justice have had access to these for a while. The Democrats decided to release these yesterday. Allegedly, the Democrats released them. One person who we all know, Ms. Candace Owens. We all know Candace, right? Candace said the following about 13 hours ago. She said this at about 6:45 p.m. yesterday. She said they are blackmailing President Donald Trump in broad daylight. The slow release of the emails is intentional. Now he will give them whatever they want. Now, who is they? She clarifies. For those who struggle with context clues, they equals Israel, who Jeff Epstein worked for. This is how our nation is run. This is all coming from Candace Owens. That's not me reporting. This is what Candace Owens had to say. I'm just going to enter that into the record as we get more into the context here. So these emails are real. As I said, they are authenticated. They are confirmed by both Democrats and Republicans after the full 23,000 page batch was released. So all these emails and the Jeff Epstein files, etc., is 23,000 pages of documents. These have already been released. So this is not news. Any of you who thought this was news. Now, Trump is mentioned, of course, and that's the only part anybody cares about. Amongst 23,000 pages, you got about 5 pages where Donald Trump is mentioned. That's all everybody's talking about, which means, first of all, we pause right there. What does this tell us? It tells us that people don't really care about the Epstein files. What they really care about is witch hunting somebody who they don't like. Because if you cared about the Epstein files, then you would go through all 23,000 pages and see what you can find. But what they're really doing is saying, let's see if we can find somebody who we can demonize, who we already don't like, which will just verify the demonization I've already done in my own mind. That's what people are actually trying to do here. Now, Trump gets mentioned, but none of it accuses Donald Trump of misconduct. Instead, it just shows Epstein basically talking shit. He's either bragging or speculating or trying to protect his own image. Now, some interesting things about Jeff Epstein. I'll come back to that in a second. This redacted victim, the person where it says victim spent hours at my house with Donald Trump, we already know who that person is. That person is a woman named Virginia Giuffre. If you're not familiar with her, she's a woman who repeatedly, publicly, and under oath, I trust mostly when someone says something under oath. You say it over and over again, doesn't make it true. You say it in public, doesn't make it true. You say it under oath, I believe you, because if you get caught lying under oath, you go to jail. This is what Virginia said. She said Donald Trump never touched her, never acted inappropriately, and was helpful to her when she worked at Mar-a-Lago. So she used to work at Mar-a-Lago. And one of the reasons that Trump and Epstein, who were friends, one of the reasons that they fell out, according to Donald Trump, was that he found out Epstein was a creep. Now, he didn't explain exactly what he meant by that, but also is well known that Jeff Epstein would come to Donald Trump's place, Mar-a-Lago, and Jeff Epstein pissed Donald Trump off because he used to try to poach Donald Trump's staff members from Mar-a-Lago to come work for him at his island. So Donald Trump was getting mad at Jeff Epstein, like, yo, you're my friend, but you're stealing my employees to come work for you. Mostly to be relatively young women. He would steal from Trump, not women that they were dating, but women that were working for Trump, and he would get them to come work for him. And Trump got mad at him for that and basically excommunicated Jeff Epstein from Mar-a-Lago over that. And that is pretty much verified that Epstein would do that, and then he would get them to come to his island, and something else was happening. Go watch the Netflix series. You want to know what was happening there. Now, because the names Epstein and Trump are next to each other, the internet immediately manufactured a narrative about this that the documents themselves do not contain. There's no narrative in here that proves anything. It's Jeff Epstein basically saying things about Donald Trump, mentioning Trump's name after they were no longer friends anymore. And Trump made it clear he wasn't messing with Epstein anymore. And sometimes after Epstein knew that he was going to get prosecuted, now he's sending emails talking shit to, and not to Donald Trump, but about Donald Trump to other people. Now these documents have come out. Let me introduce myself first, and I'll give you more context on this, and then we'll discuss. So, those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of a few books, done a few TED Talks, run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do over here is we help professionals, highly skilled professionals, those of you who are in finance, the legal system, corporate executives, C-suite workers, accountants is one other group I was thinking about. Lawyers, people who work in the legal system, I said that already, and entrepreneurs. What we do is we help you command the room, own space, project confidence and leadership, dominance, and authority without saying a word. We call this the power presence. You're watching on TikTok, you see that book right there, manual right there. I know it's backwards. I have it flipped, but it's called the power presence. Just take my word for it. Click the link in my profile. You can learn about working with me directly. Have me as your direct coach inside of our mastermind. That link that's in my profile takes you to where you would be in my mastermind. You would get a copy of that manual sent to your physical doorstep. Again, it's called the Power Presence Protocol. So first of all, let's start from the beginning at the top of the list. Since when did we all of a sudden give credence and credibility to something that a known pedo had to say? This is the first question. Now, we know the answer to the question, but I had to put the question on the record. Because it's often said by people when they're being objective, or at least as objective as human beings can be, they'll say something like, and by the way, if you're on TikTok, please like the live, tap the screen, please. Like the live and tap the screen. 263 people in here. We're not even at 10,000 likes yet. I'm not even starting to get into my material till y'all like the live. Like the live, everybody, and tap the screen. We are at, we just got the 10,000 likes. Get the likes up, folks.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Tap the screen and like the live if y'all watching on TikTok. The only thing I ask any of you to do at minimum is to tap the screen and like the live. So moderators who are in here, please remind people to like the live, tap the screen as y'all are coming in. We do 100,000 likes every single day when I do these live streams. Tap the damn screen.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Thank you, everybody. Please keep it going, liking the live. When you like the live, it sends a message to the algorithm that people are enjoying this material that brings more people in here. So that's why you like the live. Just tap the screen and that makes the likes go up. So we at 17,000. Keep it going, folks. So my question, again, this is a rhetorical question. Since when did we start believing the word of a known pedo and all of a sudden anything that person says has credibility? First of all, Jeff Epstein's dead. He's been passed away for several years now. But Jeff Epstein is known. It is confirmed. We all have generally agreed that Jeff Epstein did some really bad things with underage children. We all agree to that, right? And he was doing it on his island, Epstein Island, and maybe on his plane, et cetera, et cetera. We know Jeff Epstein was a bad guy doing bad things. And we know Ghislaine Maxwell was around helping him out. Were there other people involved? Maybe, probably. We don't know. We know the two of them have been convicted. My question is, once in a normal setting, y'all give me a yes or no in this, in just a normal situation, when we know a person has been convicted of doing these terrible things that make them basically a terrible person in the eyes of polite society, don't we or do we not generally discredit anything that comes from that person simply because of what we know about them as an individual? Even if they say something that has nothing to do with that, the fact that we know their reputation as this, it basically stains anything that comes out of them. Is this true or not? Give me a yes or a no if that's generally true. If someone is known as being this person who's a child pedo, that anything else they say, we must weigh it with a grain of salt simply because of what we know about their background. So everybody agrees that this is true. So how all of a sudden is anything that Jeff Epstein says credible just because he's talking about Donald Trump? So if you want to know, you want an example of TDS, you want an example of Trump derangement syndrome, here it is right here. People are so deranged to be negative about Donald Trump and pull anything they can out of their ass to say something negative about Donald Trump that they will even give credibility and credence to something that came from a person who is a known pedo simply because he said something negative about Donald Trump. If Jeff Epstein had something to say about anybody else, people would say, well, why we got to listen to him? He's a pedo. Oh, but he said something about Donald Trump. Okay, so now all of a sudden he has credibility. All of a sudden. Now we got to listen to what Jeff Epstein had to say. He's not alive anymore. But anything he said in his emails about Donald Trump, well, hey, we got to implicate Donald Trump. Hey, we can't ignore that. We got to say something negative about Donald Trump because he's talking about Donald Trump. If he said that about Kamala Harris, you wouldn't accept it. If he said about Barack Obama, what would everybody come out and say? The same people who are trying to make this into an item. Well, I guess they did make it into an item yesterday. It was enough of an item that I noticed it, and here we are talking about it. Let's say he was saying the same thing about Barack Obama. What would everybody say? The same people. They would say, who the hell cares what a known pedo has to say? Isn't that what everybody would say? These same folks. Who cares what a known pedo has to say? All right, this guy was doing bad things with underage children on his island for years. He was convicted of it. He took his own life. His accomplice was convicted. Nothing he says has any credibility. But now he says something about Donald Trump. Now it's credible. Now we got to listen to it. Now we got to talk about it. Now it becomes a story. This is an example of Trump derangement syndrome. So any of you want to know what it looks like, this is but one example. There are 100 examples. This is just one. Now, as I already told you, these emails are verified. These are real emails. And this is not internet rumor, the emails themselves. What's the rumor is the straw man arguments people are making from the context. The context of the email says Trump's a bad person. So Jeff Epstein said Trump's a bad person. Okay. Donald Trump, I just told you, stop being friends with Epstein because he didn't like the things Epstein was doing. Trump called him a creep. He said that out of his own mouth. And he also said, it's been verified, Epstein used to poach his employees from his business. And Trump got mad at him like, hey, you're my friend. How you stealing my employees? And who knows if he knew what Epstein was doing with those employees, but he knew he was poaching his employees. Trump didn't like that. And that's why he stopped being friends with him. So then Epstein is talking shit about the guy who stopped being friends with him. Sounds about right to me. Any of you have somebody you stop being friends with and they just start talking bad about you to other people? Any of you ever had that happen? Give me a yes or a no. Has any of you ever stopped being friends with somebody, or you stopped dating somebody, or you broke up with somebody, and they just start talking bad about you to other people, and word got back to you that they were talking bad about you? Okay, so that's all Jeff Epstein was doing. He was talking bad about Trump because he wasn't cool with Trump anymore. He used to be cool with Trump. Y'all seen the pictures. Here's him standing next to Jeff Epstein. Here's a clip of him and Epstein inside of a party, and here's him and Melania and Trump and Ghislaine. And it looks, and people are trying to draw from that. Oh, well, they were doing stuff together, so they used to be friends. Now they're not friends anymore. They're both very powerful. They're both very well known, and they both got a lot of money, so they probably know a lot of the same people. So Epstein was mad about that, and he started bashing Trump. What's so crazy about that? So him bashing him does not necessarily mean that it's wrong. So all of you in here who are saying, yes, that you've had that happen to you, if that person says something negative about you, is it instantly believable? Probably not, because they might be just mad. They might be just saying stuff because they want to make you look bad because you're not their friend anymore, because you're not their boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, business partner, boss anymore. So now they're talking shit about you because they're mad about the fact that the relationship fell apart. So these came directly from, again, Epstein's estate under subpoena. So they had Epstein's estate, meaning whoever was around to take care of his stuff after he died. The government subpoenaed this and said, give us all the emails. They gave up all the emails, and that's where this came from. And Republicans confirmed these documents, again, right after the Democrats put them out. Now, authenticity, folks, does not equal guilt. Let's be clear. Let's think logically here. So let's take your TDS hats off, those of you who are wearing them, and take your MAGA hats off, those of you who are wearing those. Let's just think completely logically and objectively. Just because we can verify that Epstein said Trump's name does not mean Trump is guilty of anything, because Jeff Epstein knew a whole lot of people. So another interesting thing about Jeff Epstein, why is it that the only person that Jeff Epstein allegedly knew and was cool with, Donald Trump, is the only one everybody's talking about must be guilty? I believe 98% of the people crowing about the Epstein files and releasing those files are thinking, hoping, and wanting Donald Trump's name to be in there in some way that implicates him in a crime. A couple problems with this. Number one is the TDS. We already talked about that. Number two is that if they put the Epstein files out, let's say all the files come out and they're completely redacted, that doesn't prove anything. As I just showed you, one of the redacted names in these emails that came out yesterday was Virginia. Virginia said under oath that Donald Trump never touched her and never did anything inappropriate. And Epstein, in his email, said Virginia spent hours at Trump's house. He was saying it in a way as if to implicate, hey, she spent hours at Trump's house, and I know Trump's a bad guy. He said that in that email. Trump's a bad guy because I know Virginia spent hours at his house, but Virginia said nothing happened when she spent hours at Trump's house. So what are we saying here? That right there undermines any credibility of what Jeff Epstein is doing. Did everybody catch that? Should I explain that again? I need to explain it a second time. For the people who did get it, should I explain that a second time for the people who didn't get it? Give me a yes or a no. Should I explain that one more time? Let me pull that email up again. And where is it? The redacted one where he said, here it is right here. So 2011. All right, let me explain it one more time. Jeff Epstein said the following. He sent this to Ghislaine. Her email was Gmax. So he said to Ghislaine, I want you to realize that the dog who hasn't barked is Trump. This is in 2011. So this is before Trump was president. Victim, that's Virginia. Virginia spent hours at my house with him, not at Trump's house, at my house with Trump. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there because Epstein had been facing some police authority issues for years when it came to this stuff. He finally got caught back later on in 2019 before he passed away, but he had been having some cops issues before that, even back then, so 2011. So Jeff Epstein is saying, he's saying to Maxwell, the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. So he's trying to implicate Trump in his email to Ghislaine. Virginia spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. So what he's inferring here, I'm going to theorize. Epstein is inferring that this victim, Virginia, who was already a victim at the time of Ghislaine and Epstein. So Jeff and Ghislaine already made a victim out of this woman. Jeff is saying this victim woman spent hours at my house with Trump. So basically what Jeff is trying to say to Ghislaine is, hey, he's doing wrong things too because we made a victim of this girl and she was hanging with Trump. So that means Trump made a victim of the girl too. That's what he's implying. He didn't say this, but he's implying that. And what everybody did yesterday, the TDS sufferers, they tried to imply the exact same thing. Here's the issue. Virginia said that didn't happen. And Virginia, by the way, has passed away. She died, I believe, earlier this year. So this is a nothing burger is what this is. But we got to talk about it because everybody wants to talk about Trump and the Epstein files. So here we are talking about Trump and the Epstein files. And Trump is the gift that keeps on giving. So authenticity does not equal guilt. Epstein is known, if you look through the files, you look through the documentaries and all the things known from his trial, Jeff Epstein had a reputation for exaggerating and boasting to shape narratives. And I mean, again, he and Ghislaine were running a criminal enterprise for several years and taking advantage of young girls. We all know that this is true. Jeff Epstein was known for lying. He and Ghislaine would lie to these girls under false pretenses, get them on that island, and then other things would happen. We all agree that this happened. Right? You see the documentary, you see the documents, you filed a case. We all know that this happened. Epstein was known for exaggeration and boasting, and he was good at shaping narratives. If you're going to rope some 17 or 16-year-old girl to your island under one pretense and then do something completely different, you probably got to be good at lying. All right, because it's not like they were just roping in a whole bunch of stupid girls. They had to mislead them in some way. So Jeff Epstein was probably pretty good at deception. I think we can agree. Now, investigators have long documented that Epstein lied to journalists and associates to inflate his influence. Again, this is all documented. None of what I'm saying here is new, ladies and gentlemen. This has not just happened yesterday. For some of you, it's news to you, but it's not generally is not news. Investigators have already documented that this guy was a serial liar, and he would inflate his influence by telling people things that were not 100% the truth. And if he needed to pull other people down with him in the process, then he would try to do that. And as we can see. Now, the redacted victim, again, is Virginia Giuffre. Her history, timeline, and known interactions match the redaction, so everybody knows it was Virginia. Again, problem. Giuffre's identity was weaponized online. This was yesterday. They weaponized her identity to imply wrongdoing that she herself had already denied. Now, again, she's not alive anymore. She said for 15 years, Donald Trump never touched me, never acted appropriately in any way. Mind you, Virginia worked for Donald Trump. She got poached from Trump by Epstein, and that's one of the reasons, according to Trump, that he stopped messing with Epstein, because Epstein was, again, stealing his employees. And Trump didn't like that. Again, why would your friend want to steal one of your employees? And she said, out of her mouth, Donald Trump never touched me. Now, the first email shows Epstein bragging that Trump never said anything to the media or police as if to say, hey, maybe he's okay with the stuff that I'm doing. It sounds like that's what Epstein was saying to Ghislaine. Hey, Trump didn't say anything to police, even though he spent hours with Virginia. So again, another way you could look at this is that Epstein is implying that Virginia knows what we did to her. She spent hours at my house with Trump. She didn't tell Trump, or she did tell Trump, and he didn't say anything to the cops, which means maybe Trump's okay with what we're doing. Maybe he can be part of what we're doing. Maybe he'll play ball and do the same thing that we're doing. So Epstein saw that silence from Donald Trump was some form of protection of his own reputation. In other words, like, hey, Donald Trump is going to protect me and not say anything because Virginia probably told him what I did to her, and he didn't say anything. So maybe he's all right with it. Again, I'm just theorizing here. Jeff Epstein did not provide that context. I'm providing the context in theory. Just a theory. I'm not reporting this. Epstein's passed away. Ghislaine is in jail. Trump ain't talking. And Giuffre's dead. So all we can do is theorize here. But I'm trying to theorize as objectively as possible here. Now, remaining silent about Epstein's crimes is not evidence of involvement. Again, and this is, again, assuming that Donald Trump knew about Epstein's crimes in some way that he was withholding information from authorities. Because if he was doing that, then he would be criminally liable. And if he's criminally liable, that means he should have been subpoenaed, indicted, and taken to court. That's never happened. So allegations are not evidence, let alone are they proof. And the real allegation that matters the most is the one that comes from the Department of Justice, which would mean bringing Trump to court, where he's arraigned and he would be charged with a crime. The issue with the whole release the Epstein files, release the files, let's say the files come out and Trump's in the files. Here's a logical point that all of you TDS holders need to understand. The files will be released by who? By the government, the Department of Justice. What does the Department of Justice do? They bring charges against suspected criminals. So let's put two and two together here, folks. Put your thinking caps on. If the Department of Justice already has access to all the Epstein files, and Donald Trump is in the files, and there's something in the files that implicates Donald Trump in a crime, guess what the Department of Justice would have already done? Somebody fill in the blank here, because I'll make sure that I'm laying these tracks properly. Somebody fill in the blank with what would have already happened if the very files that everybody wants released are already in the hands of the law, what would have already happened if they already have the files and it shows that Donald Trump committed a crime? Karen got it right. They would have already charged him. He would have already been charged. If whatever is in the files implicates Donald Trump as possibly committing a crime, doesn't mean you actually committed a crime. Just because you get charged with something doesn't mean you did it. We know that. Look at 2024 and Donald Trump. Just because you get charged with a crime does not mean you did the crime. That's why you have a right to a trial. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you, and you get to go to court and be judged by a jury of your peers. All right, metaphorically. So if the Department of Justice already has the files, they would already charge them. So anything that they release is not going to tell you anything new. All it's going to do is provide fodder for TDS holders to say, well, Donald Trump was in the files. Donald Trump was on the plane. Donald Trump was at the island. I mean, it's pretty much accepted that Donald Trump is mentioned in the files. We got proof he's in the files. This is part of the files. The emails that came out yesterday are part of the Epstein files. Sorry. So the boogeyman Epstein files, this is one of the files. Is Donald Trump in the files? Yes, he's in the files. So any of you wondering, or you asking me, or you want me to say it, yes, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. So any of you wondering, there it is. Okay, got it? Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. Being in the files is not proof of anything. It's just proof that you're in the files. Being in the files from someone's email server that was subpoenaed by the Department of Justice, all that means is that your name got mentioned. So let's say Jeff Epstein was on my email list in 2011 because he was trying to learn how to play basketball, and I sent an email, a marketing email that landed in Jeff Epstein's email inbox because maybe his nephew wants to play basketball and Jeff was trying to buy him a basketball training program for Christmas as a gift. So one of my emails landed in Jeff Epstein's inbox because he was subscribed to my email list. Technically, my name would be in the Epstein files. Does that mean I committed a crime? Of course not. Because again, all they did was just scrape every email he ever sent or received. So if you sent him an email and he got it, or he sent you an email and you never responded, or it landed in his spam folder, technically you're in the files. It doesn't prove anything. It just proves that you're there. Correlation and causation are not the same thing. And just because you're correlated with the guy does not mean you did anything. So people are reaching for straws here, trying to find Donald Trump in a 23,000 page file, 23,000 document file, because again, people don't really care about. This is the Mott and Bailey fallacy is what we call this, is when people are saying, well, they got to release the files because anyone who's been a victim of domestic abuse or sex abuse, they need to have justice, and anyone who committed that, they need to be brought to justice. Isn't that what you hear a lot of people saying? Even people on the political right are saying stuff like that. Here's the problem with that. There's several problems with it. Number one is that protecting the victims, the identity of the victims. The victims already went through the actual abuse, number one. They went through the trial, number two. They went through knowing that this guy was brought to justice, number three. Now, if you put the files out and they are not redacted and all the names are in there, dates, places, times, etc., the people who are going to be most traumatized by that are the victims, because now they got their names out in the street. Everybody doesn't know most of these victims' names right now, but if that file comes out and all those names are out there and it says XYZ person, Jane Doe, and it's her actual name, Sally Jenkins, she was with Trump on Epstein Island at this date and at this time from this hour to that hour, guess what everybody's going to go doing? Guess what the media is going to go doing? What are they going to do? Somebody answer that question. What are they going to do? Files come out and it says Sally Jenkins was with Trump on Epstein Island on this day in 2012 from this time to this time. What is the media going to do with that information? Anybody know the answer? Yes. SWK's mom got it. Yeah, they're going to go find Sally. They're going to go hunt down Sally and they're going to ask her about this and whether Donald Trump did anything to her or not. And whether he did or not. Let's just say the answer is no, he didn't. Now, all the media, the New York Times, CNN, New York Post, BBC, everybody in the world is calling Sally's phone. She can't get any privacy. Now she has to relive the trauma because now somebody's going to be offering her to go do an interview, answer these questions. They're going to be calling her phone. They're going to be sending her emails. They're going to be writing articles. Her name's going to be on the first page of Google. And her face is going to be on the first page of Google because everybody's going to know who she is now. So let's say she has a normal life now. Maybe she's married. She has kids. She has gotten over that trauma. She's been to years of therapy. She's gotten over it. She's living a normal life and nobody even knows who she is. And that is in her past. These files come out with her name in it. Now she has to relive that whole thing all over again. I thought this whole thing was about protecting the victims. See, it's not about protecting the victims. It's about let's go get somebody who we don't like. And if the victims happen to get re-traumatized in the process, hey, oh well, collateral damage. We had to get Trump. This is where people are really at. Now, most people won't admit this, but this is really what the problem is. This is what people really want to do. They don't care about the victims. Nobody cares about Epstein's victims. Nobody cares about Epstein's victims. All people care about is there a powerful known person who we can implicate and try to tarnish their name at least and get them put in jail at worst based on finding their names connected to Jeff Epstein. That's what people really want to do. Most people won't admit that, but that's the reason people are excited about this. That's the real reason. And again, the DOJ already has these files. So if there's something in there to implicate somebody in a crime, then they would already did it. And some say, well, maybe because it's redacted or trying to protect people. And if they put out the files, then if they put out the files without the redactions, then hey, maybe it will prove that the DOJ is covering up for somebody and they're trying to protect somebody and they didn't want to do that. Well, if you believe that, how many of you believe that? Let me ask that question. Give me a yes or a no if you believe that. How many of you believe the DOJ is not putting out the unredacted files because they're trying to protect some powerful people who are connected to or in the government, both Democrat and Republican? How many of you think they're just running cover for some powerful people? Yes or no? You get some yeses and some nos here. So some of you think they may be protecting some people in the government. So let me ask you, not ask you, but let me tell you something. Just think about this objectively. Think about it logically and rationally. If the DOJ will not release the unredacted files because they're protecting some powerful people who are either in or connected to the government, what the hell makes you think that they're going to do it now? But you just going to twist the DOJ's arm and make them do something? Is that how you think the legal system works in America? I don't think so. I think it works the other way around. They make you do things. You don't make them do things. And the only way it can be forced is that I just told you. The House has the vote. Then the Senate has to approve. Not going to happen. The House is going to approve it. The Senate's not going to approve it. And even if the Senate did approve it, then Donald Trump has to approve it. And you think Donald Trump's going to sign that? You think Donald Trump's going to sign that bill? Give me a yes or a no. Is he going to sign that? Is he going to sign that bill? Let me see if Grok can explain this more clearly. Tell me the full process that would have to happen from Congress all the way up to the release of completely unredacted files of Jeff Epstein in 2025 that people keep talking about. I already explained to you simply, but let me give you a more detailed explanation. See what Grok can come up with. Grok is pretty good with current event stuff. I like ChatGPT for evergreen stuff, but Grok is pretty good with the current events. So it's doing a little bit of thinking now. But Grok has been, over the last few weeks, if I want to find out about a current event, they're pretty good. So here's the legislative and release process for these files. All right, since a lot of people think that they're sleuths and they understand how this would work. So let's see. Force the full disclosure of Department of Justice records about investigations, prosecutions, death, etc. This would include investigative materials, flight logs, communications, immunity deals, references to high-profile individuals. Partial releases have already occurred. 33,000 pages came out in September from the Oversight Committee, but a lot is still redacted or sealed due to, as I just explained to you, privacy protections, ongoing probes, and political resistance. So 3 things in the way here. So one is the DOJ can say this is an ongoing situation, so no, we're not releasing the files. Another one is privacy of the victims. And another one is political resistance, because you got to go through the government to get this done. So the primary vehicle is the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This was introduced by a Democrat from California named Ro Khanna in July, and Thomas Massie, who's a Republican from Kentucky. We heard of him. Now, public discussion on platforms like X are talking about this again this week. And releasing completely unredacted files is unlikely due to legal safeguards. I already explained this to you all. One legal safeguard that is a law is called the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Any of you heard of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, the CVRA, Crime Victims' Rights Act? You know what it bans? It bans child sexual abuse material, meaning you cannot release material by law that talks about or gives detail on any abuse done to a child, an underage victim. So the unredacted files being completely released is not going to happen. It'll be a violation of the law in the United States of America. And we voted for that law, by the way. Now, the bill mandates this bill that they're trying to push through, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, this mandates maximum transparency with narrow exceptions. And again, let's remember what a bill is. I explained this to you all yesterday. 3 branches of government: the Judicial branch is the Supreme Court, headed by the Supreme Court. Executive branch, headed by the president, and the legislative branch, headed by Congress. The legislative branch creates bills. Once the House of Representatives, that's half of Congress or part of Congress, and the other part of Congress was the Senate. When they okay a bill, that bill then goes to the desk of the current president. If the president likes the bill and wants the bill to become law, he signs it and it becomes the law. If the president does not like the bill and does not sign it, nothing happens with the bill. And the bill can, as they say, die on the floor of Congress. Donald Trump is not going to sign this bill no matter who votes for it. This bill will not get signed while Donald Trump is in office. So if any of you is getting hard on, pardon the pun, thinking that these files are going to come out under this Transparency Act and is going to make Donald Trump look bad, wake up from your dream. The only way this bill can become a law is if, first of all, House has to pass it, then the Senate has to pass it, and then Donald Trump himself will have to sign an act that's going to release a whole bunch of files that a lot of people think are going to make Donald Trump look bad. Donald Trump is not signing this bill. And if he does sign it, it's probably because he knows there's nothing in there that's going to make him look bad. And if he thinks there is, then he'd be smart to not sign it. I wouldn't sign it if I was Donald Trump, if I thought that. Now, a Democrat might sign it 4 years from now. Problem is, this act may no longer exist. And depending on the balance of Congress at that time, the House and the Senate, this act may never be revived. So there's a lot of red tape that goes into making these things actually happen that tells me this is probably not going to happen. I've already told y'all that. But since y'all want to keep talking about this shit, here we are talking about it. So there's a potential House floor vote next week on this. And again, the House would vote. I think the House would say yes, but then the Senate's probably going to say no. And Donald Trump's definitely saying no. Now, again, releasing all this would violate a law that already exists. But the process that would have to happen, okay? What's already happened is legislation is drafted. That means somebody in Congress comes up with an idea for a bill that could become a law. Anybody can pretty much do that. You got to get a bunch of support, but pretty much anybody in Congress can come up with an idea for some new law that would start as a bill. It becomes a law and the president signs. So that's number one. Now, the key players, you need sponsors. You need sponsors and co-sponsors. So those of you who don't know how Congress actually works, most of you probably don't. The way Congress works is, let's say I'm a congressperson, I come up with an idea. I want to get the Dre Baldwin TikTok law. I want to create a new law about TikTok. I come up with the idea. But that does not make it a law, nor does it get it to the desk of the president. I got to get other members of Congress to agree that they like my idea, and we draft it all up and get it written down on paper. So basically, I come up with an idea. I get other people in Congress to agree with me. These are called sponsors and co-sponsors, and they get other people they know in Congress to go along with this. Understand that Congress is a bunch of people working together, and this is politics. What is politics? I'm not talking about the government politics, but politics with the lowercase p is people trying to get things done by using their relationships and connections to and with other people. That's what politics means. Using your relationships with others to get things done. That's all politics is. Politics exists in every industry, not just the government. So if I have an idea that I want to get through Congress, I have to use my political skill, again, not capital P political, lowercase p political, my relationship skill, my communication skill to get other members of Congress to go along with what I'm doing. Because remember, in order for a bill to even make it through Congress, I got to get a bunch of other Congress people to vote positively in favor of my thing. Well, guess what? If nobody likes me, if nobody likes my idea, and I can't get them to see things my way, that vote will never even happen, let alone will my vote pass. Will a vote pass? Everybody understand this? That's the way it works. So you got to get a bunch of other people in Congress to agree with your idea. So they got a bunch of people to agree with this idea. And what happened next, these key players, again, Kana and Massey, they got co-sponsors. There's a bipartisan list. So they got some people on the right to agree, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, we know her. Lauren Boebert, we know her. Nancy Mace, we know her. So they are Republicans. They agreed to this. So it started on the Democratic side, but they got some Republicans to agree. So that was enough to keep it moving forward. Doesn't mean it's done, but it moves forward. Now, it stalled inside the committee due to, guess what? Anybody know why this act stalled? So the legislation got drafted in July of this year. It was referred to the House Judiciary Committee. They get to review it. They have hearings about it. They can edit it, and they can vote whether to move it forward or to say no. That's what happens when it goes to the House Judiciary Committee, the HJC. What happened is this whole thing stalled because Republican leadership said no. Simple as that. Now, some of you may say, well, this is evidence that the Republicans are just trying to hide something. Maybe. That's one way of looking at it. I disagree with that. I say this is evidence that we have a system of checks and balances, and neither side politically can push anything through without support and cooperation from the other side. This forces compromise, and it means that neither political side can push through any radical ideas or radical legislation without getting some from the other side to agree, which means radical stuff is not going to pass. It's not going to pass from the Republicans. It won't pass from the Democrats, even if one side has a majority at the time. Right now, the Republicans have the majority in both sides of Congress and in the executive branch and in the Supreme Court. They still can't get anything done without support from the Democrats. That's how it's supposed to be. That is why we have a system of checks and balances that keeps everybody in check, and it keeps ridiculous, absurd power and corruption from running roughshod over everybody else in the country. We want it that way. If you are listening to this and you are a Republican, if you are MAGA, if you are a Trump supporter, this may frustrate you on some levels, but you should be happy, because when the Democrats have power, they could abuse this the same way that the Republicans could abuse it right now, but they can't, because the system of checks and balances blocks them from doing it. The reason why this didn't move forward because the Republicans said no. It was a Democrat idea. The Republicans said no. And if the Democrats cannot sell enough Republicans on an idea, the idea dies. And if Republicans cannot sell enough Democrats on an idea, the idea dies. It should be like that. It should stay that way. Everybody understand? It should stay that way. Even if you don't like it now, you'll like it tomorrow, because in the future, the balance of power will shift. It always shifts. So that's why a couple of days ago, and I was talking about this possibly ending the filibuster, bad idea, because any side gets absolute power, it's going to get crazy. And if the Democrats end the filibuster, it's going to get crazy. So anyway, continuing. President Trump also said any type of release is a Democrat hoax. So when Donald Trump called it a Democrat hoax, some people are saying, well, how is Donald Trump calling the files a hoax? Because here he is in the files. Well, Donald Trump speaks in metaphors. He speaks directionally. He tends to not break things down literally the way that I do. So when Donald Trump says build a wall, does he mean literally a wall along the southern border? And on some levels, yes. But what he meant when he said build a wall was not an actual wall. What he meant, because most Americans don't live anywhere close to that wall. And why did most Americans get excited about it? You live in North Dakota. Why do you care about a wall at the border? The idea is, the visual is, we're going to enforce our immigration laws, and we're going to enforce our borders, and we're not going to just let people pour into our country without proper documentation. When Donald Trump said build a wall, it was a metaphor. It wasn't literal. It was a metaphor. And everybody got the metaphor, even if they couldn't explain it. So when Donald Trump says that the Epstein file release is a Democrat hoax, what he's saying is, metaphorically, I'm translating this, is that not that the files don't exist. We know the files exist. The guy went to trial. You go to trial, there's a whole bunch of files about the trial. We know the files exist. What he's saying is people trying to intimate that he or anyone else will be implicated legally when these files release is a hoax. And we know it's a hoax because the DOJ would have already charged these people because they already got the files. And if they're protecting somebody, then they're never going to release the files. So either way, it's a hoax. So when he says the Democrat hoax, he's right. Now, when he says that, it's incendiary language, which gets a lot of people excited. And by the way, excitement can be positive or negative. So people get excited and then they say, oh, he's calling it a hoax. And here's proof that it's not a hoax. So they get into contextomy. They get to literalism, rather, is the better way of saying it. Literalism is when you take something that someone is saying metaphorically and then you dissect it literally as if you're debunking what they said. Again, when Donald Trump said build a wall, it doesn't mean we're going to build a damn Great Wall of China along the southern border of America. We might, but that's not what he meant. What he meant was we're going to enforce our laws and stop letting people come in here unencumbered. That's what it meant. So then when people say, well, he said he was going to build a wall, where's the wall? All right, that's what we call literalism. People take a metaphor and they try to break it down literally and then argue against the literal interpretation of a metaphor as if they're making a point, was a version of a straw man argument. And if you've been around here before, you know what we do when someone uses a straw man. Strawberry cheesecake. So Donald Trump calling it a Democrat hoax was a signal, a dog whistle that he played for the Republicans in Congress to let them know, do not vote positively on this because I'm not in favor of it. That was what his way of letting them know. Him calling it a hoax is letting all the Republicans in Congress know, don't move forward with this because it's not working. No hearing got held. Instead, partial documents were released via the Oversight Committee as a compromise. So the Oversight Committee said, okay, we can't put the whole thing out because it's not going to pass. How about we just put out some of it? So they put out some of it. The sum of it is what we're talking about right now. They already did this. So this is not news. Now, the bypassing committee, if leadership blocks committee action, proponents file a discharge petition. This is where we are now. And they can try to force a vote. This is what they're trying to do. So you need 218 signatures. That means basically the majority of the House of Representatives from members across parties. So I believe the House right now is about 435. So 218 is exactly a little bit over half, one more than half. And the arcane rules dates back to 1917. This compels the bill to the floor after 7 days of legislature. That's what they're saying they're going to try to do. So Massey and Connor are still leading this. They got the signature from a person named, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, Adelita, sounds like a female, Adelita Jagalva, who's a Democrat from Arizona, on November 12th. This just happened 2 days ago. So they got the 218 signatures. So this happened. So the next thing is, this triggers a House floor vote next week. So next week, there's going to be a vote on the floor of the House. And there are probably going to be some defections. They say 83% of the GOP is going to support this. The issue is Donald Trump is threatening the Republicans trying to sign on. So again, let me help you all understand how politics works. Again, the president has the most power. The president has the biggest megaphone. The president can impact whether you as a congressperson gets reelected. And everyone in Congress knows that. So if you're a Republican working in Congress right now, and you know Donald Trump is Donald Trump, also technically a Republican in the White House, and you do something that Donald Trump doesn't want you to do, Donald Trump's going to see that you did it. And guess what Donald Trump's going to do? He has a pretty well-earned reputation at this point that when a Republican doesn't follow his wishes, he bashes the Republican. And he will try to primary that Republican and get them removed from their office. And he's done this to people already. And he will do it again because the elections are coming up in 2026. Every Republican in Congress understands this. Donald Trump has made it clear that it's a hostile act if you support this act that they're trying to get passed, this Epstein Act. He considers it a hostile act for any Republicans who okay it. Now he knows the Democrats are going to okay it. He's saying any Republican who okays this, you're going against the team. You're not being a team player. So any Republican who does this is doing this at the risk of having Donald Trump breathing down your neck and trying to get you primaried, or just trying to get you replaced in 2026. So these are all the things that if you're a Republican working in Congress, you got to consider all of this when deciding what to do. So when any of you consider, why are people in Congress not doing things for the betterment or for in the best interest of the American people? Well, consider all these things I'm explaining to you here. They got to think about all of this when they're deciding to vote yes or no on something. Who is this going to piss off? Will this piss off the president? Will this piss off my constituency, i.e. the people who voted for me? Will this piss off some of my friends in Congress? Because if I lose some friends in Congress, then the next idea I have, I can't even get it on the floor because my friends won't co-sponsor my bills anymore. Will this piss off any of my donors, the people who donated money to me so I could win my last election? I need their money so I can win my next election. Will this piss off somebody in the media who's going to start bashing me and make me look bad to my voters, which could cost me my next election? And someone in Congress got to think about all of these things every time they make a decision. It is not as simple as just do, quote unquote, the right thing or do what makes the most sense for your people. This is what you're supposed to be doing when you're working in Congress. But when you have all of these different factions involved, all of these things have to be considered. So politics is not as cut and dry and black and white as some people try to make it seem from the outside looking in. There's a lot of pieces that go into this. So anyway, here's what's next. Only 4 initial signers came from the right, and more may vote yes under pressure. Pressure from the media, pressure from other Democrats, pressure from their voters. Other Republicans may flip and decide to vote yes on this and send it to the desk of Donald Trump, which puts pressure on Donald Trump, because if he votes no on it, then people can hold that against Donald Trump. So this is a whole chess game going on. Now, the full House debates and votes on the bill. A simple majority needed to pass. We already know that happened. There could be amendments. Then the key players. You got Speaker Mike Johnson. He schedules the vote. We know Mike Johnson, right? Democrats through unanimous support, plus defecting Republicans are needed for this to pass. So they got to see if they can get some Republicans to go along with it. Democrats are going to go with it, guaranteed. Now, there's going to be a lot of drama about this. This will be news again next week. I don't know if I'll talk about it, but we'll see. So GOP leaders predict that there will be a lot of defections, but at the same time, they think they're going to beat it. So some GOP is the Republicans, by the way. So some Republicans think that some of their fellow Republicans will vote in favor of this act. But at the same time, those same Republicans say there's not going to be enough of them for this to go to the next step. So that's going to be the drama of this. How many votes will there be? That's what it's going to come down to. Now, if it passes, let's say that you get enough Republicans to go along with this act, then it moves over to the Senate. All right, that's all. Everything I just explained to you is the House of Representatives. All that has to happen in the House with 435 people. If it passes, it goes to the Senate. Senate's 100 people. Now, a prior GOP resolution for partial release already failed last month. So last month, the GOP said, how about we put out some of the documents? And Democrats opposed it. So it failed 204 to 215. The Democrats said no. So what would happen next? Senate consideration and passing. Identical or companion bill must pass the Senate by simple majority. In other words, 51 votes. Or 50 plus the vice president breaking the tie. So the vice president is J.D. Vance. You think J.D. Vance is going to vote for this to break the tie? Hell no. So you need 51 votes. Right now, the Democrats have 47 senators in Congress. That means they need 48, 49, 50, 51. They need 4 senators to cross the line, Republicans, to go along with this bill. They need 4 Republicans to go along with this. Then it goes to the Senate Judiciary Committee first, but it could use similar discharge tactics if stalled. So there's all these extra things you can do if your bill doesn't pass. So Senate Majority Leader, likely be a Republican. They control the calendar. Bipartisan support from certain senators like Lindsey Graham or Dick Durbin could help. So when you get bipartisan support, that helps sway other people who have less say. So you take somebody like Lindsey Graham, he has a lot of say in Congress because he's been there a long time. He knows everybody. He has a lot of clout and a lot of voice, meaning his word can travel. So when somebody like him supports something, he gets people who have less clout in Congress to follow his lead because he just has more say. It's like if you work at a job and you've been there for 3 weeks and somebody else has been there for 3 years, you might want to go along with what they want to do simply because they politically have more clout than you have. So the same way it works in your office, it works in the government. So major hurdle, Senate Republicans who are loyal to Trump have stalled this before. So they tried this before. So any of you who thinks this is new, this is not new. They tried it already. It didn't work. Why? Because a bunch of Republican senators who are loyal to Donald Trump and they don't want to lose their jobs, they support what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump said, kill it. They killed it. And that was it. Now, if the House passes it, then the Senate companion would need quick action. Otherwise, it's going to die. So no Senate bill has been filed as of today. Now, if there's different versions between the conference committees, then both chambers can revote and they need a simple majority. The key players then would be judiciary committees. And this is unlikely if the Senate passes identical language, but the ladies can push this all the way into 2026. And then if the bill goes to the president for signature, it becomes a law, or veto, he sends it back to Congress, and he has 10 days to take action. So the key player here is, of course, the president, who is Donald Trump. He's already publicly opposed this. He literally called it bullshit. That's a quote. And he is pressuring his allies to block it. In other words, he's trying to get the Senate to take care of this so he doesn't have to. Because if it goes to his desk, then everybody's going to be talking about him. And it's going to make him look bad to say no to the bill, even though he probably would. He wants to not even have to say no to it. He wants it to get said no to before it gets to his desk, because then all the heat and pressure will be on him. And if all the heat and pressure goes on him, he's going to get mad at the Republicans in the Senate for even putting him in that position in the first place. And then he's going to breathe fire and brimstone on their asses and hurt them for not taking care of his dirty work for him. He wants them to handle his light work. That's basically how this works. Donald Trump is saying, I'm the boss here. Y'all handle my light work. And if I got to handle my own light work, then I'm going to be mad at y'all for making me have to do this. That's where we are right now. So both chambers can revote if Donald Trump vetoes this. So let's say he gets to Donald Trump's desk and he says no. He vetoes the bill. What happens is they can vote again. Both chambers of Congress votes again. They can override the president. The way you override the president is you need a 2/3 majority on both sides. That means you need 290 people in the House of Representatives. That's a bunch of Republicans. And you need 67 senators. That's all 47 Democrats. You need 20 Republicans to flip sides. 20 Republicans out of 53 senators in Congress right now who are Republicans. You need 20 out of that 53 to override Donald Trump's veto and vote to turn this bill into a law anyway, overriding the president. This is another system of checks and balances. Let me ask a question. How many of you think that could happen? How many of you think that would happen? If Donald Trump vetoes this, do you think 20 Republican senators would vote to override Donald Trump's veto? Give me a yes or a no. Then I'm going to tell you what I think would happen. Give me a yes or a no. Do you think 20 Republican senators will override Donald Trump's veto of this bill? The answer is hell no, that's not happening. There's no way that's happening. If that happens, it will be a snowy day in Miami. All right, that is not happening. 20, maybe 2 or 3. 20 senators overriding Donald Trump's veto of a bill that is allegedly designed to make him look bad. No way is that happening. Okay, there'll be a heat wave in Minneapolis on Christmas Day, if that was to happen. That is not happening. So this is going to be tough. Now, GOP unity behind Trump's make this override not only improbable, I say damn near impossible. I would bet money that this ain't happening. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet that this is not happening. So if this became law, they would have 30 days to release all the unclassified documents in a searchable, downloadable format via the DOJ channels, such as the website. Now, is that going to happen? Again, this is the dream sequence right here. So any of you like to dream, you like to dream during the day, you want to daydream? Okay, I'm giving you the dream right here. If this passed, Pam Bondi would have 30 days to release all the documents. They'd probably take the whole 30. They can't redact anything. So for embarrassment or politics, they can't redact anything. They can redact victims, but they can't redact anybody's name. So Donald Trump's name is all in the files. They have to have his name and everything. So they cannot redact for any level of embarrassment or anything like that. And declassification will be required where possible. And the AG would have to submit a report to the House Judiciary Committee within 15 days listing categories, redactions, and named officials. And they have to unredact everything. Then the files will be completely unredacted except for protected portions, probably the victims and things like that. It would shield victims, but everything else would be completely out there. And all of you could be on Google talking about it, and we would be on here the next day talking about it ourselves. Is any of this going to happen? The answer is no. So any of you like dreaming, I just gave you a dream sequence. I just explained exactly how it works. That is the government. That is the red tape bureaucracy. That is the United States government. That's what you voted for. These are the people that you voted to represent you. And that's why this is not going to come out. So if y'all want those files to come out, keep dreaming. No, don't hold your breath. Grab yourself a Snickers bar because you ain't going anywhere for a long time. Now, the second email says Trump's long-stated claim that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. We already know that. Donald Trump kicked Jeff Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, told him not to come back. And Trump told Maxwell to stop approaching my staff. And this is the same thing that Trump said. So Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeff Epstein, they would come to Mar-a-Lago under the pretense of being Donald Trump's friend. And then they would start approaching Donald Trump's female staff, and they would steal his staff members to come with them, and not steal them like kidnap, but steal them like with a lie to come to the Epstein Island. And y'all know what took place from there. Donald Trump found out, and he told both of them, stop approaching my staff. And he told both of them, don't come to my house anymore. You can't come over my house. Isn't that what kids say to each other? You can't come over my house anymore. You can't play with my toys. Donald Trump didn't like that Epstein was doing inappropriate things, and he kicked him out of the house. That's what happened. And Trump already said that. Now, critics say that he knew about the girls as a way of creating political ammunition, regardless of facts. This is a lie. This is people just making things up that are not proven. No evidence is all of you like to say. Epstein's phrasing is vague, is self-serving, and is unsupported by evidence. Again, this is a new thing that people say these days. You have no evidence. There's no evidence that Donald Trump knew anything. And to prove that somebody knows something, you need a whole lot of information. Now, there are zero allegations of sexual misconduct anywhere in these emails. All it says is Jeff Epstein basically talking shit about Donald Trump, but it doesn't say about what, for what reason. So unlike others, like the flight logs or island visits, Trump appears in none of those contexts. And again, even if he was on the plane, doesn't prove he did anything. I can get on the plane with Jeff Epstein, doesn't mean I did anything wrong. You could do something wrong on the plane, doesn't mean I did anything. I was just on the plane. Anyway, online influencers, of course, doing what they normally do. These are your paid Democrat influencers. They are misrepresenting the emails with chopped up screenshots, false captions. And this is the reason why these days I tell you all facts don't matter, because you never know if you're looking at a fact or a made up story that is being presented to you as a fact, or you're looking at a fact pulled out of context, none of which represents the truth. The truth is all the facts in full context. It was the reason why I don't want any of you to end up in a court case, but this is the reason why court cases matter, because in court cases, you have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And if you lie under oath, you go to jail. In that instance, most people tell the truth because they know that there's real consequences for lying. There's no consequence for lying on the internet. There's no consequence for lying on TikTok. There's a consequence for lying on the stand. So anything that you hear that's not somebody under oath giving testimony, you must get a second opinion before you accept it as reality. And then you got to use your own logical brain and your own ability to think, what we call critical thinking, to find out what is actual, or not find out, but to discern what may be true, what may not be true based on your own critical thinking skills. The challenge is many people lack critical thinking skills, so you can't even do this, but I would suggest that you develop the ability. I did a 2-part series on critical thinking, episodes 1826, 1827 on my podcast, which is called Work on Your Game. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. 2-part series on critical thinking. It is a highly valued skill because there's so little of it these days. Now, viral accounts combine unrelated rumors with new documents for engagement. This is what people do these days. People are getting smarter about this stuff. So what they do is they take something that is real, then they mix it in with their own conjecture and their own theories, and they blend it all in, and then they call that the truth, or they call that a fact. This is why you all got to get very discerning about figuring out when somebody's telling you the truth and somebody's bullshitting you, because it's very easy to mix the two together, and people have a hard time discerning. All right, what's the real thing and what's the part that you're kind of splicing in? You saw a lot of people do this in a coordinated attack against Candace Owens yesterday. They were all posting similar things all at the same time all day yesterday. It was a whole coordinated campaign against her. But people took clips from her podcast, then they would mix them with clips from other things, and then they would have Candace saying one thing, then somebody saying something, then Candace saying something else, somebody saying something else. Then they made this 3-minute montage and they put it out and say, hey, here's Candace implicating this. And that's a complete lie, because all they did was take a factual piece of information, then some conjecture, mix them together, and then say, hey, here's the truth. This is, most people don't have the discernment to understand that they're being duped. They wouldn't believe that as truth, or they co-signed it because they're part of the coordinated campaign. So pay attention. All right. Anybody who says enough that starts to piss off a large group of people, they'll do this to you. They do it to Candace, they do it to Donald Trump, and you got to be aware of it. Even if they're not doing it to you, you got to be aware of who they're doing it on so that you are not misled by the nonsense. Mainstream outlets also jumped into this. The New York Times jumped on this and was wrong, as usual. Reuters jumped on this. They were wrong. ABC jumped on it. Political all jumped on it. Many of them jumped on it. And some of them said that Trump is not accused of abuse in the documents, but some of them talked about it in ways that left a lot of open vagueness as to what exactly they were saying, which is, again, why you cannot trust the mainstream media anymore. These people sold their integrity for clicks. That's what they did. They sold their integrity for clicks. And there's no such thing as journalism anymore. Actually, that's not true. There is a such thing as journalism, but it's few and far between. You got to look hard to find it because it's not as popular as the nonsense. Now, the internet reaction, like what we're doing here, I guess you can call this is a response. It's not a reaction. But it proves that narratives spread faster than facts. And I don't even like to call it facts. Narratives spread faster than truth because facts can spread too. Facts can paint narratives. And just because somebody has facts does not mean they have all the facts. Nor does it mean they have all the facts in context. That's what the truth is. So next time you hear somebody talking about the facts, or any of you like to say, well, we got the facts. I don't give a damn if you got the facts. Give me all the facts, not just the ones you want to give me. Give me all of them. I want all the facts, and I want the context that glues all these facts together. That is known as the truth. And if you don't have all the facts and the context that connects the facts, then I'm not hearing what you're saying. I'm not hearing your conclusion. You cannot draw a conclusion from picked and chosen facts. You cannot draw a conclusion from picked and chosen facts. You can only draw a conclusion from all the facts in full context. That is known as the truth. If you don't have all the facts and all the context, you don't have the truth. You have pieces of it. And you can create content with facts pulled out of context. You cannot have the truth with facts pulled out of context. And there's a big difference. Most people these days do not have the intellectual depth or the patience to consume all the facts in full context. All the facts in full context, folks, is usually enough material to fill a book, not enough to fill a 20-minute YouTube video. So those of you who get your information in these small little snippets, you're not getting the truth. What you're getting are hand-chosen facts picked by whoever made the material. And it's designed to paint whatever picture they want to paint and put in your head that may not be based on facts at all. Not facts, truth at all. There are facts. Usually these days, you got to give people some facts so that they believe that what they're hearing must be unchallengeable. But again, most people don't have critical thinking skills. So they don't understand that just because somebody gave you facts does not mean they're giving you the truth. But none of you should fall victim to that because I'm explaining it to you here. So this story was trending just because it was Donald Trump, not because it's any substance here. Now, Republicans releasing the 23,000 pages diffuse the secrecy. Because what happened, as I explained, the Democrats put these emails out, and Candace Owens said Israel did it. But let's just say the Democrats did it. Might be the same thing, but Democrats put these emails out and said, look at Trump, he's in the files. Right after that, the Republicans put the whole thing out and said, yeah, we already knew about that. So they basically took the steam out of the Democrats' sails, the wind out of their sails while putting the whole thing out. This is spy versus spy. So transparency makes it harder to sustain conspiracy claims. So they try to say there's some kind of conspiracy by Donald Trump, but then the Republicans put it out and kind of knocked that down. But Democrats did achieve a political effect. What they did was they controlled the headlines. And this is what they're trying to do against Donald Trump. So they're trying to play chess against Donald Trump. One thing Donald Trump is really good at is controlling the news headlines. He's very good at controlling the news cycle. He can get you to talk about whatever he wants you to talk about. So the Democrats made a nice chess move on Donald Trump yesterday and on the Republicans by releasing these, because by releasing these, they got all of us, including me right here, right now, talking about this. And they controlled the news cycle by putting this out. Now, Donald Trump has to make his counter move, and he has a counterpunch by recontrolling the news cycle. And I guarantee you he will. Between now and Monday, my next live stream, guarantee you Donald Trump's going to take over the news cycle again by putting something different out. So they got Epstein and Trump connected, and they got that in the headlines again. Now, even without evidence, that association is politically potent in an election cycle. Now, we're not in an election cycle, but it's potent to keep bringing it up because they're going to keep using this. Epstein, 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 Epstein. They're going to keep using this the same way they use Russia, Russia, Russia. Remember that 10 years ago? They're going to do the same thing with Epstein. That's the next thing they're going to use against Donald Trump. So they had the Russia in 2016. Then you had the, what did they call it in 2021? The insurrection was the second one. And then now they got this. So every 4 years, they come up with something new. Yeah, notice this? This is the new thing. The new thing is Epstein. This is what they're going to use between now and 2028. Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. In 2021, it was insurrection. Now it's Epstein. And they might not need another one. That's all they're going to need. They can just keep screaming Epstein because as long as this bill never becomes a law, they can just keep saying that they're hiding something. And they can just keep claiming this forever. Donald Trump's hiding something. Okay. But we already broke this down. All that being said, somebody said, who's the common denominator? The Democrats. Democrats are the common denominator. I think you're trying to get a different answer, but you set yourself up for that one. So the common denominator is the Democrats and people with TDS. So it's actually two common denominators. All that said, folks, I do need to take a quick restroom break, and then we will get to our comments. So let me get my soundboard warmed up. I think we may need to use a few. Strawberry cheesecake. I don't know how many of you like to eat strawberry cheesecake early in the morning, but we'll give out a few of those today. I think we'll get a few. Is that like a personal attack or something? Few ad hominems, and we'll probably get some. Oh, I like your funny words, Magic Man. Probably get some appeal to ridicule there, and we may get some loaded questions. Somebody just asked a loaded question, so you get the loaded question. We may get some. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy. Okay. We're probably gonna get some appeals to emotion. Emotional, damn it. And yes. Emotional, damn it. And this one right here. Be right back. Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried. All right, let's get to it. We got about 35 minutes here. I may go overtime if the comments are good today, but we'll see. If the comments are not good, then I won't go overtime, but we'll see. Let's see what we got. David Hoynes on YouTube said, if Trump has nothing to hide, why doesn't he release them as his denial screams guilt? Well, Daniel, I just spent the last an hour and 20 minutes explaining how that's not true. So you get the first non sequitur. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Non sequitur award of the day. Denying something does not scream guilt. And secondly, Donald Trump cannot release the files in that way. The Department of Justice controls the files, not the president. So your question is a false frame on top of the fact that it's a straw man. And somebody accusing you of something that you say you didn't do, and then you saying you didn't do it does not mean denial. If I say, hey, are you still beating your wife? And you say, no, I was never beating my wife in the first place. Does your denial scream guilt? That doesn't make any sense. So let's see what we got over on Instagram. Bruce 2159 said those emails are crazy. Not really. Not when you understand the context, which I just spent the last hour explaining. Emails are we already knew about. D Fears, good morning over there on Instagram. So over here on TikTok, let's see what we got. Lori Cachetti Goodeel 55. Thank you for the follow. Scloopy Doo said he has the schedule of the vote. You blew past that too easily. I didn't blow past anything. I gave you all the context. I mentioned scheduling of the vote. And Donald Trump doesn't schedule the vote. That's done by the speaker. And I said that. Code, thanks for the follow. Michelle said, why doesn't Trump want the files open if he's innocent? I'm just asking. Well, first of all, the DOJ has access to the files. Donald Trump said there's nothing there. I believe, and we already know to be true, that Donald Trump's name is mentioned in the files. We can see that already. And Donald Trump understands control of the news cycle. He controls the news headlines. He doesn't want the news cycle dominated by Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files, even though it doesn't implicate him in it does implicate him because Epstein, we know, has a negative reputation. So Donald Trump does not want his name next to Epstein's name in 23,000 pages of documents that are going to be all over the internet because that sullies his name because we know who Epstein is. So Donald Trump does not want that association. The law of association, folks, is you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. So if Donald Trump's name is on the internet associated with a guy who already has a terrible reputation, that hurts Donald Trump politically, not in politics with a capital P, but with a lowercase p. He just doesn't want his name associated with that guy. He doesn't want that all over the internet, and he doesn't want that dominating the headlines for a month. That's why he doesn't want the files coming up. And I wouldn't want those files coming out either, even though I know it's not going to land me in jail, because if he was going to jail, they would have already put him in jail. Karina said, I definitely don't see this going anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere, but I understand why Trump doesn't want the files coming up. And again, you not wanting something to come out does not mean that you're not innocent. It means that you're playing the political game. Understand, Donald Trump understands the news cycle game better than anybody in politics right now. He dominates the news cycle. He's dominated for 10 years straight for a reason, because he knows how to keep the stories being about what he wants them to be about, not what somebody else wants them to be about. Dominic said, Democrats put out 3 emails. Republicans dumped 33,000 pages. That's a stunt move. They put out 3 emails because they're slow dropping it. This is exactly what Candace Owens said. They're slow dropping it because they're trying to control the news cycle, and they're trying to make his name look bad. And the Republicans put out 33,000 pages of the files as a way of basically pulling the rug out from under the Democrats so they couldn't do it. So Jack Studel said he's not going to. Well, he is not the one who does it. Graham. Oh, you're talking about Graham. Okay, that's correct. Jack said, will be a Republican up for election in 26. Oh, a bunch of them, yes. Michelle, thanks for joining the fan club. Melissa said, you're very good at explaining things. Well, thank you. Black Scorpio said intimidation. You're talking about Trump with the Republicans? Yes, and he should intimidate them. The same thing Obama did with the Democrats when he was president. Miss Ronnie Mack, thanks for the follow. Ace of Spades said, great explain. Thank you. Jewel Greer, thank you for the rose. Cheryl said they will override him, no doubt about that. No, they won't. You need 20 Republicans in the Senate to cross over to override him. That's absolutely not going to happen. I'm willing to take your bet on that, Cheryl, if you really believe that. Feather said, nope. Yeah, and a bunch of you said no. Dominic said, which means Democrats will never be able to veto the president. And they won't be able to, not with the current balance of power in the government, and they shouldn't be able to. They should not be able to, Dominic, and you should not want them to, even if you hate Donald Trump. You don't want either political party to have so much power in the government that they can completely override the resistance from the other side, because that means absolute power. And with either side with absolute power, there's going to be anarchy. You don't want that. You don't want the Democrats to have it. You don't want the Republicans to have it. So when they have these stalemates, when neither side can get the other side to agree to stuff, it sucks. And it can piss some people off, and some people miss their paychecks in the process. But given our current system, this is the best way to get it done, or to get nothing done. One or the other. Tiny Tim said, I came in late. What's the bill for? The bill where they're trying to get this bill on the Senate floor to release all the Epstein files with no redactions, which is not going to happen. Oscar said they're beginning to think of the long run now. No, I think they're thinking of it right now. The thing is, when these bills don't pass through the floor of Congress, they often just fall apart. And remember something else. If they can't get this to happen now during this session of Congress, here's what happens, everybody, is let's say they can't get this through in this cycle. They try to do it right now and the bill just falls apart and they can't get it done. They can't get it to the president's desk. In 2026, a bunch of Congress people are going to be voted out and replaced by somebody new. So they would have to start all over again because you got to get votes from this new group of Congress in order to get this moving. Now, of course, some Congress people will keep their jobs. I don't think Bernie Sanders is getting voted out. I don't think AOC is getting voted out. But some of them are getting voted out. They'll be replaced. Now you got to start this whole thing over again. And you might not have the same, since you don't have the same people, the same personalities, the same ideas, you can't get the same number of votes. So now you may get fewer votes and you can't even get it through the House the next time around. So they are on the clock and that they need to get this done before the 2026 elections. And that's why if it falls apart this time, it's probably not going to come back ever again. David Cotton said, why didn't this happen during Biden? That's a great question. One answer, I believe, is that Donald Trump is not super negatively involved in this. And a bigger answer, I think more likely, maybe both likely, both true, but more likely is that there are powerful people on the political left or connected to the political left whose names are in those files that the Democrats don't want those files out for the same reason why the Democrats don't want the files out, the Republicans don't want the files out. And Jeff Epstein worked with Israel. We do know that that is true. That is not to be questioned. And we know that that country has ties politically to both the Democrats and the Republicans in the United States of America, which means it might be best for people in power, super duper power, not Congress, but executive level power. None of them want these files coming out because, again, I've said this many times that everything the Democrats did to try to keep Donald Trump off the ballot in 2024, they didn't have to do any of that. If Donald Trump was in those files, they could have just used that. That would have been all they needed to do. Just put that out. They wouldn't have had to do any of those court cases. They could have used that. That would have hurt him worse than any of those court cases. They didn't put it out. And there's a reason they didn't put it up. Big Ben said, we will get to 2,000. What does that mean? Jack Jones said, what are they hiding, sir? Who's they? And why are you so sure something's being hidden? Grade A Snit said, I'm a Pisces, I love to dream. Well, good. I just walked you through a 20-minute dream sequence that's not going to happen. So I hope you enjoyed the dream. Texas Mama said, the fact that people think Dems aren't on the list. Well, in the files. They're in the files. They're absolutely in the files. David Cotton said, DOJ has had all this for 6 years. Yes, and they're going to have it for the next 60, and those files are never coming out. Miss Allie Baby, good morning. Wifey Tip said, Trump went to the FBI on him also. I didn't know that. Cure Fan said, don't you think it's suspicious that Trump doesn't want people to see what's in there? No, I just explained it. So anybody who has this argument, well, Trump is just trying to block those files from coming out. I just told you all. He's trying to control the news cycle. Would you want a whole month everybody talking about that? That would be him losing control of the news cycle, which he doesn't want. David Cotton said, DOJ has had all this for 6 years. Why didn't Garland do this? Good question. Rory said, finally, someone speaks truth. Thank you. Booster Gold said, the cope is so strong with this guy. What am I coping about? I'm not Donald Trump.
Emotional, damn it.
Cheetah Monk said, we've been on this merry-go-round too many times. Yes, and they're going to keep taking you around it. This is what politics is, folks. And politics in the media is all about getting you excited about something so that you don't pay attention to the other thing. And then they do the other thing while you're excited about the other thing. That's the game. So that's how it goes. Jennifer Ellert, thank you for the repost. Jay Rocket said, and people still lie under oath every day. Technically, you're right, Jay Rocket. People do lie under oath, but there's a penalty for lying under oath. If you get caught lying under oath, you go to jail. You get caught lying on Instagram, nothing happens. So that's why I more trust what somebody says under oath than what they say on the internet, which is what I think I pretty well explained that. Booster Gold said, a pro-Trump pedo guy talking about critical thinking.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Strawberry cheesecake. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
So you got the ad hominem.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
For doing saying I'm a pro-Trump pedo guy. And I'm not a pro-Trump anything. I'm just a pro-objective logical thinking. Then you use the LOL, so you also get the appeal to ridicule.
I like your funny words, Magic Man.
Non sequitur, comparing it to critical thinking. There are critical thinkers on all sides politically. If you're not mature enough to accept that, then you got a bigger problem.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
So you get the Russell Westbrook triple-double 3 fallacies in one statement award. Congratulations, Booster Gold 2 4.
Oh, baby, it's triple. Oh, yeah.
Grade A Snit said Brene would beg to differ. She got to pay 1.7 million, 75 million. Who's Brene? I don't know who that is. But directionally, you understand what I'm saying, right? Marcus Boyd, thanks for the follow. Diesel said that's why Dems need to stop lying. Well, what are they lying about? Bill said 3 sides to every story. My side, your side, and what actually happened. Technically, yes, but the problem is we can't always know what actually happened because the people who were involved in what happened are not always around to tell their stories, nor do they want to. Remember, all the victims of Epstein, they already went through the trauma. So they're the ones who actually know what happened. The people who actually know what happened are not the files in the DOJ. It's the people who went through that situation. They don't want or need to be re-traumatized, but people have such a hard-on with their TDS that they want to get Trump so badly that they are willing to re-traumatize those women just to make sure they have something negative to say about Donald Trump, which I think the people who are on that need to look at themselves very critically. If it's really about protecting these were underage girls who are now grown women. If it's really about protecting all women, then everybody should let this go because you would have to re-traumatize those women to get these unredacted files out there. But everybody is so bent on getting after Donald Trump that they completely forgot about that because it never mattered in the first place. Melissa, good morning. Niece6107 said, would be interesting if Trump brothers bought TikTok and banned or froze these influencers' accounts. No, I don't think that's going to happen. TikTok makes money when people spend time on the app. So even if people are saying something that you don't like, it still makes you money. People bash Elon on X, but he leaves them on there because it makes him money. Because they bring fans and they keep people on the app. People staying on the app, you get to run ads, you make money. So you got to consider both sides of it. It's not just I want to hear stuff that I want to hear. Crawford said the Dems didn't release the Eastern files either, so maybe releasing them could clean up all DC. So I think you mean Epstein. Karina said they Photoshop his Truth Social post because they know most won't have the app and check. Well, y'all see some of those come out. But Michael Lynn said obviously a lot of new people in here today. Well, that's good. We like when new people are in here. So moderators, we celebrate new people. Thank you, new people. Tam Wells said, if it says, oh no, he wasn't talking to me. Jay Swift said they did the Charlie Kirk. Well, I've heard. That's what I've heard. Jay Swift said they only have twisted facts. Well, most humans only have twisted facts, if we're being honest. Kay Sarah said, preach, my man. Thank you. Booster said, fact, Trump was BFFs with Jeffrey. Well, they were definitely friends at one point. But again, just because you were friends with somebody doesn't mean that you are implicated in anything that person did. If your friend goes and murders somebody, does that make you a murderer? Lucas Lang said, you're talking a lot, but you're not saying much. Okay. But you're still listening, so obviously it's keeping your attention. So I get some credit for that, right?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
David Cotton said, DOJ has all this. Yeah, you already said that before. Kay Sarah said, based on bias. Yes. Jen, thank you for the golden boxing gloves. I never saw those before. Pac-Man11 on Instagram said, Dems couldn't release it because there was an active case with Maxwell and it was sealed as soon as the conviction was handed down. So this is a different angle on why the Dems couldn't release the files. And I understand what you're saying there, Pac-Man, on a legal level. I also say that a lot of things they did in 2024 to block Trump, they shouldn't actually have been able to do given the letter of the law, but they did it anyway. So if they really wanted to make Trump look bad, they could have found a way to release those and kept their hands clean. They didn't do it because, again, they would have implicated some of their own. That's why the big reason why I think they didn't do it. It wasn't because they were like, well, we got to follow the letter of the law. Hey, we can't violate that. If that was the case, again, how those 4 cases happened against Donald Trump? None of them should have happened. Micah said, I can't wait for him to get into these comments. Well, we're here. Kay Sarah said, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Yes, under oath, which means under penalty of perjury. Nicole Card Photography, thanks for the follow. Tatted Mom, thanks for the follow. Brafa said, how about they just release them? That'll make them stop talking about it. Yes, there's several problems with that, as I've already explained. Tamwell said, they keep saying he has something to do with Epstein. He should just release the files. I say no. It's not people are saying he has something to do with Epstein. Donald Trump has admitted he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen the photos. You've seen videos of Donald Trump and Epstein hanging out. Nothing wrong with hanging out with somebody. Again, if you see me in a photo with somebody who ended up 3 years later in murdering a person, does that implicate me in a murder? No. Just because he was cool with him does not mean he did anything that Epstein did illegally. They were cool. Donald Trump said the guy was a creep. I stopped dealing with him because, and this is all documented and legally proven, and it's been said that Ghislaine and Epstein kept approaching Donald Trump's female staff and poaching them to come work for him or do whatever for him, and they ended up doing what they did. Donald Trump found out that they were going after his staff, and he was like, yo, why you keep talking to my staff? Y'all can't come to my house anymore. You can't come over my house. Like kids say to each other, you can't come over my house anymore. That's what Donald Trump told Epstein. Dolphin said they don't want to talk about Russiagate now. And nobody wants to talk about it because it was proven to be a bunch of nonsense. Jaja Gapur said maybe he is corrupt. Well, maybe anybody could be corrupt. Define corrupt. If you give me a definition of corrupt, I could pretty much tell you how any human being is corrupt based on your definition. David said DOJ has had all this. David, you said that comment like 4 times. Don't spam my comments. K. Sarah said they need to be careful. They don't get what they wish for. Well, everybody does pretty much. Leah said, I like strawberry cheesecake any time of the day. Well, I think you should have breakfast first for strawberry cheesecake. Matt K, thanks for the share. Goddess and Kelly, thank you for the follows. Katie said, best part of the day, emotional damage. Yes. I like when I use that one. I haven't gotten to use it that much. Dolphin said he's going to stock up on strawberry cheesecakes. Yes, this is what people do. J Rocker said, bathroom is closed or some good microphone. I don't think either one. Ace of Spades said, great show today and explanation. I lost my spot in the comments. Where was I? All right, I think I might be able to get through all the comments here. Heather Moore, thanks for the follow. Ace of Spades, thank you for the compliment. Oh, y'all heard that? I had 2 doors closed. I don't know how y'all still heard that. I should have turned the water on. All right, sorry everybody who heard that. Anyway, D-Love said, great to see level-headed response. All the enraged back and forth is tiresome. Well, this is the internet. This is how the internet works. Ashley Mack said, kidneys working well. Yes, on top of the fact I drink a lot of water. By the time I do these lives, I've already drank 5 liters of water today. So I front load my water intake. Keeps you from having to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. David Cotton, David, how many times are you going to post the same comment? You only got to post comments once here, folks. I see them. I go through the comments and I see them. I'll read them. You don't have to post more than once. Bart, thank you for the follow. Tana D says, so tired of Epstein files. Nothing will be done as often ammunition doesn't help victims. Well, Tana, here's the problem. You're right. The thing is, people don't care about the victims. What they care about is trying to get Donald Trump. People throw all their morals out the window when it comes to getting Donald Trump. No, I didn't leave the door open. The door was closed. I didn't turn the water on. Nathan Don said 55 seconds. K. Sarah said, where are all the other names? There are millions of names, and not millions. I'll say thousands of names in those files, but nobody cares about any name but Donald Trump's. Jay Swift said, didn't a Republican put out a standalone bill to release everything but the picture and the videos? I don't know. They all been putting out stuff, but I don't think any of us are going to make it. That's the whole problem. Jay Rocker said, that's your interpretation, or maybe he's just guilty and trying to keep it hidden. Well, there's not an interpretation that somebody's guilty. Everybody in the country is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, Jay Rocker. Just because a file comes out does not make you guilty. It just means that you are named in a file. That's all it means. If somebody is guilty, then they have to go to court and they have to be proven guilty through a legal trial, and it must be adjudicated as guilt. So just because somebody's name's in a file does not equal guilt. So that's a non sequitur, what you said there.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
Cure fan said the Republicans should release 3 documents at a time to implicate a Democrat. No, it wouldn't be a good strategy, Cure fan, simply because there's no Democrat that anybody cares about enough, nearly as much as they care about Donald Trump. So if they were to do that, then it wouldn't matter because all the Democrats would do is clap back by putting out something about Donald Trump and they would win. Dolphin said the people involved got to waste tax dollars somehow to hide the money laundering. Yeah, probably. Depends on what you mean by money laundering, though. K. Sarah said, I think Trump has to sign it anyhow. No, he doesn't have to sign it. He can veto it and it can be overridden, but they would need 20 senators from the Republican side to flip on Trump for that to happen. That's never going to occur. So this is never going to become a law. So any of you getting excited that this is going to happen is not going to happen. But I don't mind talking about it. Y'all want to talk about it? Jay Swift said, did the Democrats block a standalone bill that would have released everything? I don't know. Feather215 said, I enjoy your show. Thank you. You're welcome. Brooke Martella, congrats on the gifter badge. Thank you for the greeting heart. A-Town said, but those are just different wings of the same bird. What should our priorities be? Well, who are you talking about? If you're talking about Congress, their priorities are supposed to be serving the people. Now, are they really trying to serve the people by getting these files out there? No, what they're trying to do is make Donald Trump look bad. Because if they really cared about serving the people, they would not try to re-traumatize these victims. Now, their frame, their Mott and Bailey is, well, we're just trying to make sure all the people involved are brought to justice. Well, the Congress cannot bring people to justice. The Department of Justice brings people to justice. The Department of Justice already has the files. So if somebody's going to get brought to justice, that's by the Department of Justice, not by Congress. So it doesn't even add up what they're trying to say. But the average person doesn't understand this. So the average person listens to it and it sounds good because they want to see Donald Trump get something bad happen to him. That's what this whole game is about. Everybody knows it. Mike said, F APAC. I understand you. K. Sarah said, like the Prince, people like that. What do you mean? Dolphin said, research the people announcing not seeking re-election this year. What do you mean next year? But there will be a new group, and it's a new session of Congress. And every new session, they had to start all over with this stuff. That's why they got to get this stuff done before they reach the finish line. Jay Rocker said, so if Dems don't want them out, why are they trying now? Well, that's a straw man.
Strawberry cheesecake.
I didn't say Dems don't want them out. I said Democrats theorizing that Democrats know that there are probably some powerful Democrats in those files as well. But if they release just parts of it that implicate Trump, then they can take control of the news cycle, which is exactly what they did yesterday. Ashley Nicole said, the realest person on here. Thank you. Kay Sarah said, the emails are not the files. Well, the emails are part of the files. An email is a file. Ashley Max said, keep sharing the truth, Dre. Thank you. Free 12312F said, very smart man. Thank you. G Black, thank you for the lightning bolt. Hey, it's Holly. Thank you for the follow. Blonde Demon said, what about false police reports? What about them? What does it have to do with what we're talking about? Difference Maker said, love it. Class A SmackDown. T-Dub said, Trump is deranged. Well, that's what some of his detractors say. You're allowed to say it. First Amendment protects free speech. Jay Rocker said, don't speak for them. Maybe they want justice served. They already got justice served. That's why they went to court and they testified. Ms. Watkins said, Trump just posted on Truth Social about this. Well, of course he did. That ain't news. Littler, thanks for the follow. K. Sarah said, you're very cute. Well, thank you. Jake Lancaster said, it's not what you know, is what you can prove. The files they released show zero criminal activity. This is true. If it's about somebody being guilty, they got to prove something. And it's not even them. It's the courts. This is not a court case, folks. All it is just some files that will be put out on the internet. It doesn't actually do anything. All we do is give people like us more stuff to talk about. I wouldn't mind if the files came out because it'll give me plenty of material to talk about for about a month. But is it actually going to do anything? The answer is no. And honestly, any of you who expects the government to do anything on your behalf, you should hope that they stop talking about this because none of this is helping you. But if it gets you excited, I guess this is what people want. I mean, this is why social media is social media, folks. Free says, smart man, love listening to you. Thank you. T-Dub said, Trump looks bad by himself. Okay, if you keep saying that, you may eventually come to believe it. I don't know what looking bad will do for him. He already won the presidency. He's not running again. So let's say he does look bad. He's still the president. What do you think? Michelle said, Dre, do you think Stephen A. Smith has a shot in 2028? A shot at what? You mean running for office? No. They tried that. They floated him out there for a couple months. He has no substance. No, he's not running for anything. Not happening. I talked about Stephen A. Smith about 2 weeks ago. I did a whole live talking about him and the fact that he has no substance. He sounds good. He has a lot of fans. He's good at his approach works for his fan base. But can he actually run for office and win? No, not on the federal level. Wendy Lee V. Corbin said, everyone involved needs to be held accountable, both sides of the aisle. Yeah, everybody keeps saying that. Wendy Lee V. It sounds good. Wendy Lee. It sounds good. I don't think anybody really cares about holding anybody accountable for that situation. On top of the fact that we don't even know who is involved. People say everyone involved needs to be held accountable. Well, what do we mean? Who is involved? And what they do? First of all, we got to find out who did what. We need evidence that somebody did something wrong. The evidence is enough to bring a criminal charge. Then with the criminal charges, you go to court, and then you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Then they get held accountable. Just because somebody's involved does not mean they did something criminal. So that word involved, I get what you mean by that directionally, but they had to be proven to have done something illegal. And they would have to prove that through the DOJ. The Department of Justice has to do that. And the Department of Justice already has the files. So again, when they bring charges, then we have something. If they don't bring charges, then we have nothing. Jay Rocker said, it's the fact that they were friends and he doesn't want the files released looks shady. Well, you can say anything looks shady by combining random facts. That's a non sequitur.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
You could say that it looks shady that here I am on TikTok talking to a bunch of people who I only know from screen names, and I'm responding back to what you have to say. You say this looks shady and I'm doing this. You call anything shady. That doesn't prove anything. Tim Apple said, what if Trump was a dog that didn't bark, didn't report on what he knew about the abuse? Well, yeah, that's what Epstein, it looked like he was implying in his email, but we don't know because Jeff Epstein is dead. So we don't know. And Donald Trump's not going to talk about it. So we don't know if that's even true. Could have just been Epstein talking shit. Again, you're saying, what if? I say, okay, what if? Can you prove it? If you can't prove it, then we ain't got nothing to go off of. So Epstein's brother sent an email that says, does Trump have pictures of Trump blowing Bubba? Again, doesn't mean it happened. And they had to prove it. Is Bubba going to admit that? Bubba being Bill Clinton. Is he going to admit that? No. Is Trump going to admit it? No. Can Epstein prove it? No, he's dead. Is DOJ putting that out as anything they actually have hard evidence of? The answer is no. So, and would Putin put it out? No. So again, this is all just people saying stuff, which is great for social media, not great for courts. Michelle Wingard, thanks for the follow. Just Shauna said, the left has me completely exhausted. Well, people on the left say the same thing about people on the right. Brooks said, they have been trying to get Trump forever. They would have used guilt against him, any guilt against him by now. Yes, of course. They've been trying for 10 years. That guy said, identity politics has blinded the masses. Well, going against Donald Trump has blinded the masses is what I think. I think it's more Donald Trump more than it is just identity politics. Steven said, I didn't get that much interaction today. I got to level up on my fan club. Great show, Dre. Thank you. Jessica Valenzu said, like the due process he gives others. Who's he? You talking about Donald Trump? Donald Trump is the president. He's not a court. Courts give due process, not presidents. That's a non sequitur.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And it's an implied straw man.
Strawberry cheesecake.
So, Jessica, you get a Angel Reese double-double award for that comment. My Michael Lynn said, were all y'all this mad about P. Diddy? Well, see, people don't care about P. Diddy. He's just a rapper. Most people don't even listen to rap music. Everybody knows who the president is. Stacey Vegas, thank you for the share. Rick Johnson said, thanks for the common sense knowledge. You're welcome. Leah said, let's get to 150K likes. I agree with that. I agree with what Leah said. We're at 146,000 folks. Can we get to 150K, please? Red Hawk said, then why do the victims want them released? I didn't hear the victims say that. I heard the victims say they're going to put out their own list. They said that a month and a half ago. We haven't heard anything from them since because they can't, because they are bound by gag orders based on the, what they call it, the NDAs that they signed when they got paid off. So again, that's why none of this is coming out. This is an airtight nothing burger, folks. They all got paid off and they got told, you put a name out, you got to give back this money that we gave you. None of them's giving that money back. None of them's going to talk. And that's why they haven't said shit since then. Everything makes sense when you understand the context. Jay from the Bay, thanks for the follow. Wild Cherry said, my favorite podcast. Well, thank you. Jay Swift said, there's an active investigation going on. They can't release names at this time. Yeah, well, the DOJ can say there's an active investigation going on forever, which is why we are never going to see the files. Again, no matter which way you slice it, there's like 10 different reasons why we're never going to see these files. And all of you have mentioned them already. So, I mean, what do you want me to say? These files ain't coming out. Not the unredacted files. They're not coming out. Lynn May, thank you for your live. You're welcome. By the way, folks, I have an actual podcast. Some of you call this a podcast, but I have an actual podcast, a recorded one that comes out every day. It's called Work on Your Game. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. Let me pull it up so y'all can see it. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. It comes out every single day. It is called Work on Your Game. And it is, where is it? Here it is. Looks like this. Work on your game. As you can see, today's episode is number 3,471. So I put out episodes every single day. 3,471 of them is called Work on Your Game. Now, these episodes are about 20 to 30 minutes each, sometimes a little bit over 30 minutes. But it's a solo show. It's me talking about, the subtitle of the show is Dominate with Mindset and Structure and Discipline. This show is all about personal and professional development. So any of you want to step up your professional game, your personal game, your leadership, your communication, your mindset, your discipline, your execution, your strategy, and your systems. That's what that show is about. That is my main work, is what I do over there on that show. And in our program that you can get involved in a link in my profile, the Power Presence Mastermind. Christy, thank you for the gifts. CC Ruiz, good to see you. Thank you for the gifts. Tim Apple said, that's what I said about Trump, though, because all he was a TV show host. No, Tim, that's not true. How did he get a TV show, Tim? What was he doing before he got a TV show? Jay Rocker said, it's well known that rich, influential people are able to keep themselves out of trouble. Well, that's kind of an implied straw man, what you just said there, Jay Rocker.
Strawberry cheesecake.
You also just told on yourself that you're not rich or influential because you're trying to make them look bad. And at the same time, just because someone is rich and influential and they don't get in trouble does not mean that they did anything wrong and they use their influence to stay out of trouble. Maybe they're just rich and influential and they didn't do anything wrong. That's also possible. You didn't mention that. And also, rich and influential people go to jail all the time as well. A.U. Hunter said, you would make an excellent judge, Dre. That I agree with. I think I'd do good being a judge. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a lawyer. I think I could be a lawyer, but I wouldn't want to be a lawyer. And I think I could be a politician, but I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be a judge either. I'll do all my judging from right here on TikTok. I'd rather be an entrepreneur than any of those things, but I appreciate the compliment. Gen X Grammy, thank you for the follow. Granny, thanks for the follow. Richard said, accusations are worthless unless it can be proven. I wouldn't say worthless, because an accusation can still make somebody look bad. I mean, think about a woman accusing a man of sexual abuse. Now, that accusation can destroy that man, even if he's proven innocent. But I get what you mean, that it doesn't actually legally do anything to him unless he's proven. But if he goes to court, then he got to pay for the lawyer. So a lot of things accusations can do depending on what the accusation is and who brings it and who they bring it against. Tim Apple said, in a criminal case, proof is required beyond a reasonable doubt. In the political sphere, different. Yes, in a criminal case, you need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Exactly. You must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So again, putting out the Epstein files does not prove anything. K. Sarah said, I know this. If there's anything there, it would not be drip, drip now, strawberry cheesecake. Fair enough. Bina said, I saw somewhere Trump was an informant, worked with the DOJ on the takedown of Epstein. You saw it where? Bina, I saw something. Biana, I saw something somewhere is a bad way to start a sentence over here. That could be, where'd you get it from? Who said it? Can you prove it? Do you know it's true? Did you verify it? But maybe it's true, but I saw something. I saw somewhere as a rough way to start a statement. Doesn't mean it's not true, but I don't know how much I can trust that. Let's see. Let's get to 150K. Yes, we got to 150K. Lori B. Patriot, thank you. Lori said, my thumb hurts. Well, I appreciate it. Daily Matt, good morning. Algo Rhythm said, just join the live. Why would the files not get released? Well, Algo, you had to rewatch this whole live because there's been about 10 different reasons that have all been brought up either by me or by the commentators. A-Town said, where can I get in that work on your game? You talking about the podcast or you talking about my mastermind? If you're talking about the podcast, it's on Spotify. Just look up work on your game. If you're talking about my mastermind, click the link in my bio. Link in my profile on TikTok. Difference Maker said, do you know about infinite banking and irrevocable trust? Well, I know what they are, but that's not the topic here today. Why are you asking me that? Sam said, how do you get a TV show? Bankrupted casinos, LMAO. Yeah, right. Okay.
Strawberry cheesecake.
CC Ruiz, congrats, member level 10. K. Sarah said, them letting this out is for the Trump haters to spin and forget about the government shutdown. Maybe that's part of it. Tim Wells said, would work on your game be able to help me as a small business owner? Absolutely. A lot of people I work with are small business owners. I work with entrepreneurs and high skill professionals. So these are finance people, lawyers, doctors, accountants, medical people, and entrepreneurs. Those are people I work with. So if you're a small business owner, you're right in our wheelhouse. So look the show up on Spotify, listen to a few episodes, and once you are pretty sure that I can absolutely help you, then you join my mastermind at powerpresenceprotocol.com/mastermind. Those are your steps. CC Ruiz, thanks you for the Go Popular. Dolphin said, we lost innocent until proven guilty unless it's their relative friend. All right, sometimes that is the case. I get it. Rory said, you can be a judge and not go to law school, apparently. Well, technically, there's different types of what people pose as judges. They're not technically not judges by their actual name. Their actual title is not judge, but they can act in a way most people would see them as judges. I know what you mean. I know what you're talking about. Dowling Max said, you probably be too honest to be a politician. I'd be too honest to even win. I've explained this many times. To win an election in America, you got to tell people things they want to hear. I don't tell people what they want to hear. So I would never win an election in the first place. So I could try to be a politician, but I would fail. So any of you thinking I could be a politician, technically I could if we had a different system. But in America, no. In America, you got to tell people what they want to hear. As soon as I start telling people what they need to hear, then my career would be over. I wouldn't even get any donor money. So I wouldn't even be able to run ads because nobody would donate any money to me because they know I'm not going to win. All right, why would we give you money, Dre? You ain't going to win. You can't win talking like that. Kay Sarah said the court of TikTok opinion. Pretty much. Karina said Epstein's lawyer said Trump was an informant. Okay. Does that necessarily mean it's true? I'm not sure that's enough corroborating evidence to say that it's true. Mine Dorone said, what did Bondi mean when she said she had all the files? That as the top prosecutor in the country, she has access to all the files. And I don't think she's lying. She does have access to all the files. That doesn't mean she can put them out, though. She can't put out the unredacted files unless she gets an okay from her boss, who is the president, and an okay from the people who run the DOJ. Courts have a lot of autonomy when it comes to what the president says. I mean, if you don't believe that, just look at all the times Trump tried to do things and the courts blocked him and he couldn't go above and beyond the courts. Again, that's why we have a system of checks and balances, folks. The judicial system, the legislative system, and the executive branch all have their own power, and they can all do things to slow down, veto, or block what one of the other groups wants to do. So none of them can just do whatever they want. So Pam Bondi can't even do what she wants if the judicial system does not want her to do it. Tana D8 said, just listening to you as I'm working makes me feel smarter and more productive. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Chrissy Joe 76 said, those who talk about the ultra wealthy bankrupting businesses know little about the taxes losses. Blue Collar Dad says, public knowledge that Trump helped provide info that led to Epstein convention. Well, it depends on what info you're talking about. Does that mean that he was an informant? It depends on what you mean by that, provided info. You could technically say what I'm doing right now is providing info. Weeva, thanks for the follow. Tamwell said, HVAC company, I will check it out. Yes, we can help you a lot. Kay Gon said, when will they release the financial report showing billions of dollars worth of wire transfers? What are you talking about? Gen X Granny said, I love your format and try to watch as much as I can every day. Well, Gen X, whatever you miss, just watch the replays on YouTube. If you can't catch it live, catch the replay. Nathan Don said, tell people what they want to hear, hence New York right now. Yes, see, that's how you win elections. You win election by doing what Zohran Mamdani did. So I can't talk like Zohran Mamdani. I could do it for an hour or two, but I can't do it for 6 months straight. And I don't think he's lying. I don't think he's acting. See, to be a politician, you got to have a certain makeup. It takes a certain mental makeup to run for office at big offices. Now, if I could run for something like city council and I could be honest and win. If I ran for like some little small district in South Florida, I could maybe win. I gather up enough money. If I got enough friends who have influence, I can win an election in some small place, some small election. But a big election like the mayor of a city or a state level thing or a federal level thing, you got to tell people what they want to hear. Zohran Mamdani told people what they want to hear, but I believe that he believes it. I don't think he's lying. I think he believes everything that he said. Now, whether he actually gets it done is a different story. But he's made out to be a politician. I'm not cut to be a politician. I don't have the personality for politics. I don't have personality for the public sector in general. And that's why I'm an entrepreneur. Lori said they are magistrates, I believe. What does that mean? I don't even know what that word is. Jake Lancaster said, case in point, Mamdani did that exact thing. His plans for buses already shut down. Yes, Mamdani believed what he said. I don't think Mamdani was lying. I did a whole album on him on Monday. Any of you who weren't here on Monday. I think he believes it. He's the type of person who should be in politics. He's perfect for politics. Bernie Sanders is perfect for politics. AOC is perfect for politics. There's a certain type of personality that works in politics and a certain type that does not work. I know that my type doesn't work. So one of the things that we teach in my Power Presence Protocol, which is this book that y'all see up there, and let me see if I got another copy right here. One thing that we teach in this Power Presence Protocol is we teach awareness, self-awareness. One thing that everybody has to be is very aware of how you are perceived and the type of person you are. You got to be aware of your own personality. I know my personality. So I know who I work well with and I know who I don't work well with. I can tell from a mile away the exact type of person who would love my approach and the exact type of person who would hate it. The people who would love it, that's y'all who are in here listening. The people who would hate it, they don't listen to me. Not because I'm saying anything wrong, but because my style just doesn't work with everybody. But everyone needs to know that your level of self-awareness matters a lot for making sure you end up in the right places, in front of the right faces, saying the right things. Shirley B, thanks for joining. Glow said, Trump gave money to Jesse Jackson. We all knew that he was far from winning. Well, the thing about giving money politically, it depends on how you do it. There are vehicles for that. And based on Trump's business model, just from the outside looking in, that can be written off as a donation, even if the guy doesn't win. And now at the same time, you got to understand who Donald Trump was before he got into politics. Donald Trump was very popular in the black community. He was very popular amongst rappers, very popular just for being a brash. People looked at him as arrogant guy with a whole bunch of money who made no apologies for it. Black people like people like that. And everybody loved, in the black community loved Donald Trump before he ran for office. So him giving money to Jesse Jackson was more buying influence than it was thinking he was going to win. So there's a strategy to it. Now, if I go to a donor and say, give me money so I can run for office, what they're buying is influence with me, because if I win, then I can help get things done for them. But they look at my approach and they say, well, Dre, talking like that, you can't win. So if I pay you, I'm not buying any influence. So the only way they'd be giving me money is if they can write it off in some way. It depends on their business structure. This is not financial advice. Speak to a qualified financial advisor before making any financial decisions. A-Town says, Stephen Colbert does not own a network, but he hosts the Late Show on CBS, which is owned by Paramount. Why are you bringing that up? Why did you say that? Karina said, I watched his briefing yesterday. It was terrible. He has no idea where he's getting the money from. Who's he? Who are you talking about? Mamdani Glow said, Mamdani's not a politician. He's an agitator or influencer. Well, he's a politician. He just ran for political office in the biggest city in the country and he won. We can't say he's not a politician. He just won an election in New York City. K. Sarah said, class president who promised vote for me, no homework, free strawberry cheesecake. K. Sarah, whom believe your lies, what's that called? What do you mean? When somebody tells lies and they believe them? Well, it depends on if they believe it's a lie. So you had to read their minds to know that they think they're lying. Somebody could be lying or saying something that's not accurate, but they believe it to be true. If you tell yourself a lie often enough, you'll believe it to be true. It's like a boy saying that he's a girl. You may see that as a lie, but they may see it as the truth. So who's right and who's wrong? DeAndre Hunter on YouTube said, why would Trump be calling and begging Republicans to not vote to release the files if it's all BS anyway? Well, first of all, I don't think Trump is begging anybody anything. That's a clever framing that you use there. It makes it a little bit of a loaded question. And I already explained this. Donald Trump does not want the news cycle dominated by Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, because that takes away from his ability to influence the news cycle. If the news cycle is all about Epstein, then it's not all about whatever he wants it to be about. I think he wants to control the news cycle, which he has been doing for the last 10 years straight. Why would he allow the news cycle to get dominated by something that he doesn't want out there? I would not want it out there either if I was him. So I think it's a great strategic move by him. Rory said magistrate. Kagan says some of the wire transfers include Leon Bank and Chase Bank, a direct link to paying for services. Okay. And what does that prove? Jay Rocket says self-awareness is absolutely essential. Yes, it is. Glow said, thanks for the explanation. You're welcome. Kagan said, Mamdani was instrumental in helping New York taxi drivers during the height of the medallion crisis. I didn't know that. Okay. Rick Johnson said, cognitive dissonance is, I think, what they meant. You know, it's wrong, but do it anyway. Well, again, that's the same thing. Cognitive dissonance is when someone's experience of reality conflicts with their mental picture of reality. For example, most people thought there's no way Donald Trump could ever be president. Then when he won, a lot of people experienced cognitive dissonance, including myself. I didn't think he was going to win in 2016. But when he won, people had two options. You had three options. You could either say, damn, I got fooled, and change your mind. That's one option. We'll come back to that in a second. Or you could say, damn, I didn't think it was any way he could win because there's not enough dumb people to vote for him. So that means there are more dumb and racist people than I thought there were. That's what a lot of people chose. Those are the people with TDS to this very day. People said the only reason Trump won because a bunch of people are stupid, uninformed, uneducated, and racist. That's how some people responded to their cognitive dissonance, by tripling down on what they already believed and just saying the rest of the world must be stupid because no way I could be stupid. That's what a lot of people did. And there's a third option, but it's slipping my mind right now. The option I chose was I realized that maybe I had been being fooled. I was taking in too many of the wrong sources. And I started listening to people who were on the other side of the conversation. And I realized that Donald Trump was not as crazy or racist as people made him out to be. And I said, okay, this guy has some ideas that go against the beaten path, but he ain't that crazy. He's not that radical, but people made him out to be radical. So it changed the way that I looked at the situation. So people who are critical thinkers, when they experience cognitive dissonance, the first thing they do is look in the mirror and they ask themselves, where was I wrong? Where did I get fooled? Whereas people who are not critical thinkers, when they experience cognitive dissonance, because we all experience it, what they do is triple down on believing what they already believed. So in other words, they say, Trump can't win because only people who are going to vote for Trump are racist and there's not enough racist people in America. So then when he won, they said, okay, well, I guess everybody in America is racist because that's the only way he can win. See, that's foolishness. That's what an 8-year-old would do. Whereas a logical, critical thinker says, okay, I know everybody's not racist. So all the people who voted for him, they're not all racist. So why did they vote for him? Let me find out. Then you go get more information. You get curious instead of doubling down on your own beliefs. Most people just triple and quadruple down on their own beliefs when they experience something that conflicts with their worldview. And this is the reason why most people don't grow intellectually after puberty, because they just keep believing whatever they want to believe, regardless of what reality is telling them. So, Rick, I'm glad you brought that up. I talked about that when I broke down TDS, what exactly it means. I did a series on my podcast, not this, my actual podcast, where I talked about TDS and why people have it. I explained Trump derangement syndrome in a 3-part series in episode number 3156 of my podcast. 3156. Work on Your Game is the name of my show. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. And on episode 3156, I did a 3-part series breaking down Trump derangement syndrome. And I explained this concept of cognitive dissonance, what it is, how it works, and how most adults respond to cognitive dissonance. They respond usually by believing more of what they already believe, even though reality is telling them that their beliefs are bullshit. But they keep believing it anyway because most people don't want to change their minds about anything, especially if they are emotionally engaged in a belief. So if your emotional belief is anybody who likes Donald Trump is stupid and racist, then you're just going to keep believing that no matter what reality is telling you. You're just going to come up with more reasons to believe what you already believe. K-Sarah said, Trump is wearing white pants. Who does not want to stand next to a dirty tree? K-Sarah, what are you talking about? Rick Johnson, appreciate it. Tim the Patriot said, very well said. Thank you. Big Sam said, is there meds I can take for that TDS? Yes, logic. Logic is the med that you can take for TDS. Just logic. So we'll talk to some logical people. Actually, what you can do, Big Sam, on a serious level, if somebody does have TDS, is go find someone who has positive or neutral things to say with regards to Donald Trump and just listen to what they're saying. Listen to the entire context of what they're saying. And it would open people's minds up. But a lot of people don't want to have their minds opened on a subject on which they have already made an emotional decision. This is the challenge of humanity. When humans make emotional decisions, they do not want to be challenged. They don't want their emotion challenged with logic. You cannot overpower emotion with logic, which is why people are siloed off into these groups because they're emotionally already decided where they are and they're not changing their minds no matter what you say. So that's what it is. Christy said, my God, Stray, I love your honesty. Logic and reason is so needed in society. Well, I appreciate it. Jay Rocket said, impressive that you know the exact episode. Well, I'm pulling it up on my files. I don't have that many episodes memorized, Jay Rocket. I'd be doing some kind of world championships of memory if I had 3,000 episodes memorized in my head. I'm pulling it up on I have a file with a list of every episode. So every episode I've ever done, I have it written down. Big Sam, is that anything like Drake-tomania? I don't know what that is. I never heard of Drake-tomania. What is that? Glow, appreciate it. Karina said, I got curious in 2016, listened to him for myself and found out I was misled by the media. I didn't listen to him. What I started listening to was other people who were talking about him, but talking about him in a positive or neutral way. Let me find out what they're actually saying. And what they were saying was, okay, this guy's saying stuff that the average person or a mass of the average person wants. And Donald Trump didn't even win the popular vote then, but he won enough electoral votes. And I said, there's no way everybody in America is racist. I've been to damn near every state in the country. There's no way everybody is racist. No way 75 million people are racist. That's impossible. So why did they vote for him? Why did 75 million people vote for him? I started finding out what they were saying. I started listening to content creators who were positive about Trump. And then I realized, okay, this has nothing to do with race. And then I started to understand why people were thinking the way they're thinking. And I realized that I had been duped by a lot of the mainstream media who was making it seem like Donald Trump was going to put black people back in chains and undo everything for the LGBTQ. And he's going to have women barefooting in the kitchen. It was all about rich white men and everybody else was just going to get destroyed. And I realized that that was a lie. They've been lying to everybody to emotionally influence you to make a logical decision in terms of who you should support and who you should go against. It was always psyop. And a lot of people are still psyoped 10 years later. But I did not get psyoped because I'm a critical thinker. Meaning being a critical thinker does not mean I'm smarter than everybody. What it means is when I have a certain view of how the world is, and then I have an experience that conflicts with my idea of the world, the first thing I do is get curious about, did I have the wrong idea to begin with? And I question my own thought patterns. Did I think something wrong here? Did I fool myself or did somebody fool me? And if I find out that that's true, then I go find out, where did I get fooled? Where did I get some bad information? And then I start re-educating myself and unlearning the nonsense and then retraining myself with new information. People who are constantly learning are always willing to do this. They're willing to look at their own beliefs and say, okay, is this belief actually true? Where did I get this from? Did somebody teach me some bullshit and let me get the better information if I have the wrong information? Most people, on the other hand, they think whatever they already believe must be true. So anything they experience in life, they just come up with reasons to keep believing what they want to believe, even if actual life is telling them that they're wrong. Because most people don't want to change their minds. Because changing your mind requires thinking, and thinking is a job. Thinking requires effort. And most people are lazy. 3 truths about human beings is most people don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. So if you keep that in mind, you want to be different than the average person. Always use your brain and think, read, and don't be lazy. And that will separate you from the masses of human beings. So if I get some information that goes against the grain of what I believe, I'm willing to challenge my own thought patterns. Now, if somebody tells me something that goes against the grain, but they can't explain it properly, then I will challenge them. So I'm willing to go both ways. So where was I? I'll read a couple more comments, then we'll wrap this up, folks. Chrissy Joe said we should never react emotionally. Well, Chrissy, that's easier said than done. Human beings have emotions. I mean, emotions are part of being human. We didn't have emotions, we'd all be robots and we'd get replaced by AI because AI is better than us at logic. Big Sam said, I thought that was confirmation bias. What? Cognitive dissonance? Well, some of the way people respond to cognitive dissonance is confirmation bias. Cognitive dissonance is the experience of your worldview and real life come into conflict. So if I say it's impossible for a girl to dunk a basketball and then I see a girl dunk a basketball, I will experience a moment of cognitive dissonance because I thought that was impossible and I just saw it. So then I got a choice. I could either say, damn, I was wrong. Girls can dunk a basketball because she just did it. Or I could say, no, that's some bullshit. She didn't actually dunk the basketball. The rim ain't 10 feet high. All right, she cheated. See, that's what most people do. That's TDS. That sounds ridiculous, right? But that's how people sound when they have TDS. They just act like what they saw, they didn't just see it. They act like what just happened didn't just happen. Like reality is not reality. That's what people with TDS, that's how y'all sound. I'm not saying any of you individually, personally, but you know who you are. You have TDS, that's how you sound. You're looking at reality and acting like reality is not reality. Karina said, I got curious in 2016. Oh, yeah, I just read that. Michelle said, I've learned so much listening to you, Dre. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Turner said, I need to buy logic from my family. Oh, well, good luck. Turner Frank Watson, I would suggest you don't sign up for that class, as Jim Rohn used to say. Don't sign up for the class for trying to undo somebody's lack of logic. Go find people who are logical and just talk to them. But don't try to change somebody's mind. That's a bad idea. Jay Rocket said, I admit watching live is helping me cope with my cognitive dissonance. All right, fair enough. Everybody experiences cognitive dissonance, folks. Everybody experiences it. It's a matter of what you do when it happens, not a matter of avoiding it. It's what you do when you experience it. Are you willing to change your mind? Big Sam said, I did, that was you, and I listened, but you have yet to open my mind. All right, fair enough. I'm not trying to open your mind, Big Sam. I just said that. Do not sign up for the class of opening somebody's mind or changing somebody's mind. That's a bad idea. Trying to change another grown adult's mind is a bad business model. Changing people's minds, as a matter of fact, since Jay Rocker, you brought it up, let me tell you another episode of my podcast. Where is it? Episode number 1669. You are not in the business of changing minds. I got a whole episode on this. Folks, everything you hear me talk about here, I've talked about in the past. None of this is brand new. You are not in the business of changing minds. This episode number 1669. If you can't find it on Spotify, it's on YouTube. Changing people's minds is a bad business to be in. Why? Because you're trying to talk somebody out of their own thoughts. Don't do that. Your job is to find open-minded people who are willing to listen and talk to them, or find people who already see things the way you see them and talk to them. Or you can try to open people's minds, but you have to open people's minds through demonstration, not through explication. Explication is just talking. You got to show them. You got to let them feel it. When people feel something, they will change. But you can't talk somebody into thinking something that they don't want to think. That's impossible. Big Sam said, I will admit you articulate the nonsense to a point that it makes it palatable. Fair enough. I'll take that as a compliment. It's a loaded comment. It's a little bit of a straw man, but I'll give you a loaded comment there. I'll take that. Karina said, well, they were twisting his words, LOL, and that made me go down a rabbit hole. Yeah, but most people didn't realize that till after the election. That's when I realized, like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. Half the country can't be racist. That's what I was basing it on. I've been too many places. I've met too many people, white people and black people. There's no way that half the voting public are all racist. It was impossible to me. And it turned out that it was impossible because I've been lied to. Rose said we elected Obama 2 times. Right. And then right after that, all of a sudden, everybody became racist, which doesn't make any sense. Right. Big Sam said, you keep using that word racist. I don't think it means what you think it means. Well, it's not what I think it means. Racism has a definition. First definition in the dictionary is a belief that one race is superior to another on the basis of race alone. Big Sam said he's trying to get rid of everything brown, including killing the penny. All right, Big Sam, you running out of content.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Turner Frank said a lot of people want to change. I would stop voting Dems without thinking for myself. Fair enough. Tim the Patriot said messaging is very powerful. Yes, messaging is everything at the federal level because you got to give a message that can get to the most lowest common denominator of person. And most people are not that smart. So you got to have a very simple message. Make America great again was a very simple message. Turner Frank said, I don't like politics, but I can do enough research to make a reasonable decision for my beliefs. Fair enough. I don't do a ton of research for my beliefs. What I do is I listen to what people have to say, and I just think logically, does this make sense or not? To me, does it make sense to me? Michelle said, Kamala is still trying to project that negative narrative about Trump. Well, Kamala's on a book tour talking as if she won. I listened to the clips from Kamala's book tour. She's talking like she won the election. I'm like, does she realize she lost? She's recapping the things that she did as if it's a victory speech, like a victory lap. I'm like, wait a minute, you lost the election. She's talking like everything that she did worked. I'm like, everything you did failed, but she's talking about it like it worked. I don't understand. Actually, I do understand. I do understand and I don't at the same time. One castaway said people are lazy and believe the media who are in business to make money over telling the truth. That is 100% true. DMZ said, bravo, thank you. Big Sam said, I know what cognitive dissonance is. What you were explaining was confirmation bias. No, I wasn't. I was explaining that confirmation bias is often a response to cognitive dissonance. They're two different things. One is a result of the other. Big Sam said, TDS does not exist, just like Drake-tomania. I don't know what Drake-tomania is. It's amazing the things that go over your head. Oh, Straw Man by Big Sam at the end of the game.
Strawberry cheesecake.
TDS exists. I did a 3-part series on it. I explained it in detail. Robin P said, the problem is that Donald only cares about himself, so any minority is at risk. Robin P, I'm assuming that you're white making this comment. I'll give you the...
Emotional, damn it.
So if Donald only cares about himself, then that means white people are at risk too. Why wouldn't white people be at risk? If he only cares about himself, he's only one person. What about all the other white people in America? There's 150 million of y'all. So why would only minorities be at risk? That doesn't even make sense, Robin. Try again. Kate Sarah said, well, they talk about files, not talking about healthcare, the cost of houses. Yes, exactly. Chrissy Joe said, changing people's minds is done best by modeling you be an example. That is correct. Yes. That is the way that you change people's minds, by example, not by talking. Karina said that people say that not everyone's racist, but they're racist enough to not vote for a black woman. Yeah, interesting. And Karina said, went from everyone's racist to everyone's a closet racist. Well, yeah, people just use race as a cudgel because it works very well. G Black said, my TDS is when I see Caitlin Clark play basketball. She just definitely changed my mind about the WNBA. All right, Caitlin Clark is pretty good. She didn't change my mind. I think WNBA sucks as a product, and the players generally are not very good. Caitlin Clark is good, but generally, I don't think those women are very good at basketball. It's not a quality product. What I see in the WNBA, but they're going to get paid as if they are a quality product, which is just how the business works: supply and demand. Number one rule of economics. Tim said, "As Americans, we need to go forward." This is true. All right, so let's wrap this up, folks. I need to eat lunch, and I got to get on the day 5 of my Power Presence Challenge, which is coming up in about an hour. You want to get this manual? You cannot buy this. This is not on sale. This manual is not on sale, so I'm not telling you this to tell you to go buy it. You cannot buy this manual. You want this manual? You can get it, but you can't buy it. Here's how you get it. You get into my mastermind. That's where you get coached by me. So if you like the way that I break things down and explain them, doesn't matter the topic. The way I break down politics and talk about Donald Trump and the Epstein files and Kamala and all this bullshit. We can talk about professional development. We can talk about business. We can talk sales. We can talk entrepreneurship. We can talk leadership. We can talk communication skills. We can talk command in the room. We can talk speaking. We can talk listening. Doesn't matter the topic. I break things down like this all the time. This is just my style of communication. And this is what the Power Presence is all about. Does not matter the topic. You want this manual. This manual is 324 pages, and I actually keep expanding it. So we're probably going to have an expanded version coming out very soon. You want this, get into my mastermind. The link is in my profile. It's called the Power Presence Mastermind. You can get into it by going to powerpresenceprotocol.com, click the link for the mastermind, or just click the link in my bio to take you right to it. I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, everybody. If you want to get into my text message community, I send out a daily motivation text every day for free, weekly motivation every Monday. Text me at 305-384-6894 and just text the word power. You want to learn more about this program? Text me the word power. We'll send you a link to learn more about this program. Just text the word power, 305-384-6894. I will be back Monday morning live. I think next Tuesday, I'm probably going to be off. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'll be off on Tuesday, but then I think I'll be good the rest of the week as long as the internet is working the way it's supposed to. We got a new internet installed. So next Tuesday, I'll probably be off, but Monday I'll be here. So Monday topic to be determined. We'll see what the topic is. I appreciate all of you regulars who are here consistently. Appreciate the moderators for keeping everything in order. Shout out to the new people who just came in today and you like this and you'll be back. Shout out to the old people who are here. Shout out to the people who watch and don't leave comments. I know most of you watch and don't leave comments, but I appreciate all of you who are watching and engaging. And thank you everybody for liking the live. This lets the algorithm know that this is something they should let more people know about. We're doing a steady 100,000 plus likes every single day. So more people are coming into this room. As long as y'all keep supporting and showing up and engaging, I will keep doing it. This is enjoyable for me. Hopefully it's enjoyable for all of you. So everybody have a great weekend. I will see you all in the second half of November on Monday. Start writing down your goals for the year 2026, by the way. We're 6 weeks away from 2026. 6 weeks. Start writing your goals down for next year, everybody. And I will see you all Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Appreciate everybody. Y'all have a great weekend. We out here. Work on your game.